Warrior Lore. Chapter 482. Second Elder. The Great Elder was killed by the King's subduing formation, and now the Second Elder was also killed by Du Xiaofu. Everyone in the Du household was trembling. Perhaps it was only at this time that they realized what kind of fiend they had provoked this time. In the air, the old Guardian King was surrounded by lightning. He looked at the North vanquishing king and sighed. "Hey, old friend, do you want to interfere too? You don't want this grandson of yours, but I want him. Since he called me Grandpa Xie, he will no longer have no one to rely on in the capital. With this old man around, even if those people from back then come, as long as Xie Tianhong is around, the Xie family will not take a step back." The North vanquishing king looked at the old Guardian King and sighed. "What a good kid. How can I watch you bully him? My heart hurts." Grandpa Xie. Du Xiaofu came to the side of the North vanquishing king, his eyes worried. He knew that the North vanquishing king was poisoned and could not fight. "I'm fine." North vanquishing prince patted Du Xiaofu's shoulder and said with a smile, "I don't think I have many days left to live. You can do whatever you want today. If you have any grievances, just vent them out. Even if I have to risk my life, Grandpa Xie will protect you from being bullied. But don't kill too many innocent people. Just deal with the main characters and don't affect your future foundation." Du Xiaofu was a little dizzy. He did not speak, but his heart was filled with warmth. "Yes, what a good kid." The old protector heaved a long sigh. His face turned gloomy. He turned around and looked at the Du family's messy and miserable state. "The elders and experts of the Du family," he said, "hand over the stone coffin of the Stone City's Du family. Those who have been to the Stone City's Du family, stand out." "Old Master, the ancestral item should belong to the Du household." Some old people spoke up, unwilling to hand over the stone coffin. Now that the old master and the Guardian King were here, they should not be afraid of Du Xiaofu. "Old family head, inform the other kings to kill that Du Xiaofu together." Someone suggested to inform the other kings in the imperial capital to work together to kill Du Xiaofu. When one king was in trouble, the other kings would provide support. This was an unwritten agreement that had always existed between the various king palaces. "Shut up," the old protector king shouted and waved his hand. Two thunderous fingerprints flew down and landed on the two people who were talking. Pucci. The two of them seemed to have been struck by lightning. Their bodies fell from the sky and smashed into the ground. Blood spurted out from their mouths. Their eyes were filled with confusion and shock. They did not know why the old patriarch would attack them. "I'll say it one more time. Hand over the sarcophagus of the Stone City's Du family. Everyone who has been to the Stone City's Du family, get the hell out." The old protector king shouted. Lightning flashed in his eyes, causing the people of the Du household to tremble uneasily. "Old Master, the stone coffin is in the Chinquin bag." An elder in his 50s handed over a Chinquin pouch. Immediately after, a dozen people walked out from the crowd. Two of them were large men, and their eyes were filled with fear. "Chi." The old protector waved his hand and sucked the old man's Chinquin pouch into his palm. He tossed it to Du Xiaofu and said, "The stone coffin is here." Du Xiaofu waved his hand and received the Chinquin bag. There was no restriction on it. He probed it with his spiritual power. The familiar stone coffin of the ancestral shrine was inside the Chinquin bag. His face darkened. He then put the Chinquin bag into his bosom. "Those who have been to Shi City's Du family, destroy your own cultivation." The old Guardian King shouted at the 10 or so people who had been to the Du family in Stone City and ordered them to destroy their own cultivation. "Old family head, you can't do this. Du Xiaofu wants to exterminate my Du household." "Old clan head, Du Xiaofu is cruel and ruthless. He wants to exterminate our clan. We must kill him. We cannot let him exterminate our clan." The expressions of the 10 or so people who had been to Shi City's Du family suddenly changed. They all shouted out. There were also many old experts shouting in the surroundings. "So it was you who hurt my second uncle, hurt my eldest uncle, hurt my relatives. You can't be forgiven." Du Xiaofu furiously attacked. The tyrant shadow in his hand turned into an azure gold sword whip. It was demonic and strange. It streaked across the sky like lightning. Swish, swish, swish. The sword light erupted and cut through the air. At this time, how could these people resist the furious Du Xiaofu? The azure gold sword whip instantly pierced through the chests of the 10 or so people. Poochie, Poochie. The 10 or so people led by the two middle-aged men were pale. Their mouths were dripping with blood. They looked at the dazzling sword whip that pierced through their chests. The vitality in their body was instantly destroyed. Their eyes were filled with unwillingness and fear. Their eyes were filled with shock and despair, but they no longer had the strength to struggle. Swish! The azure gold sword whip retracted. The bodies of the 10 or so people fell from the sky. More than 10 people were killed on the spot, causing everyone from the Du household to be alarmed. Their bodies were trembling, and even their souls were palpitating. Why did it turn out like this? Why? Du Yunxin stood in the air under the persuasion of a burly man. She looked at the elders of her family being killed on the spot. Her eyes were filled with grief and tears. When the heavens do evil, one can still survive. But when it comes to evil, one cannot survive. The burly man sighed. Sigh! The old protector king and Du Shaoqing were in grief. Their eyes were trembling, but they didn't stop him. They knew that if they did, the North vanquishing king and Du Shaoqing would also make a move. And now, there was no one in the Du household who could resist Du Xiaofu, not even Du Chong. Around King Du's residence, countless gazes from afar were also shocked. In front of the old king, the courage king Du Xiaofu actually killed so many people in a domineering manner. How tyrannical and unstoppable was he? The old protector king looked at Du Xiaofu with a gloomy expression. He looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "Child, that's enough. You have killed enough people. Seeing that we are of the same bloodline, let's forget about it." The Huangji pellet. Hand over the Huangji pellet. Otherwise, I will not let this go. Du Xiaofu shouted. How could he not take revenge for his drunkard father? As Du Xiaofu's voice faded, a young man slowly walked in from behind the old protector king. It was the Du family's Du Chong. His figure was tall and elegant. His light blue robe fluttered slightly. He didn't look ostentatious, but he had an extraordinary aura of nobility. I have already taken the Huangji pellet. I hand myself over to you. You can kill me or cut me up as you wish, but let go of the Du household. Whether you are willing to admit it or not, we are of the same bloodline. The Du family had no choice in what happened back then. Du Chong walked out. His face was handsome, and the light in his eyes flickered. Looking at Du Xiaofu, he said, "If you want to blame someone, then blame the Du household for being a little selfish. In these 17 years, grandfather and father have also felt guilty for 17 years. I consumed the mighty emperor pill that Uncle Tingxian gave me. Back then, my first set of martial skills was taught to me by Uncle Tingxian, and it was Uncle Tingxian who taught me how to comprehend my first martial skill. Instead, I watched as your family was surrounded by powerful enemies, but I was powerless to do anything." Du Xiaofu stared at the genius Du Chong. 17 years ago, the extraordinary child who protected the king was none other than this genius from the Du clan. Du Xiaofu had personally witnessed that scene. The Emperor Ascension pellet his drunkard father brought over from the Tianwu Academy was the Emperor Ascension pellet the Du clan wanted to lay down a good foundation for him, paving the way for him to cultivate. Du Chong, step back. It's not your turn to speak here. Step back. The old protector king reprimanded Du Xiaofu. His figure blocked in front of Du Chong. Looking at Du Xiaofu, his expression seemed to have aged quite a bit. He opened his mouth and said, "It seems like you want to collect the debt from back then as well. That's good too. There will be a day when it will be settled." As his voice faded, the old protector king's gaze swept past Du Xiaofu and finally landed on Du Yunlong. He said, "Child, are you also a member of the Stone City's Du family?" Stone City's Du family, Du Yunlong. Du Yunlong walked out with the 1,000 kill in his hand. His cloud robe fluttered in the wind, and his aura was extraordinary. Du Yunlong, a good name. I just don't know how courageous the Stone City's Du family's children are. Do you dare to come closer and let me see the elegance of the Stone City's Du family's children? If you are afraid that I will harm you, then forget it." The old protector king faintly smiled. At this moment, there was no aura from his body. His eyes that were originally filled with lightning only had a kind expression left. The Du family's children are never cowards. Du Yunlong walked out. He believed that the old protector king of the Du family would not go as far as to openly attack him. Du Xiaofu did not stop him. Under the gaze of countless people in Dragon City, even the old protector king would not harm his second brother. However, in his heart, he was still on guard. The tyrannical shadow in his hand was covered with mysterious runes, ready to explode at any time. You are indeed extraordinary. You are a talented person. You are another good child of my Du family. The old protector king faintly smiled. Suddenly, the calm sky without any aura suddenly surged with wind and clouds. In a flash, silver snakes flickered and dark clouds gathered in the sky. A large area of space was distorted like a tornado. Everyone, don't be nervous. I have no ill intentions. At this moment, Du Xiaofu, Du Zhixiang, Du Xiaoman, and Du Xiaoqing's expressions changed greatly. However, at this critical moment, the old protector king's voice came out from the distorted lightning storm. At the same time, under everyone's gaze, the terrifying energy tornado in the sky had completely enveloped the old protector king and Du Yunlong. High up in the sky, the wind and clouds surged. The surrounding space was filled with flashes of lightning. Just looking at it made one's scalp tingle. Rumble. High up in the sky, the rumbling of thunder resounded incessantly. Accompanied by a large amount of mysterious runes, lightning and thunder continuously turned into countless lightning bolts. When that kind of pressure descended, it was filled with destruction. It made everyone in the surroundings tremble with fear. Their souls trembled and they wanted to crawl. What a terrifying old protector king! Some people were shocked and sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, if that terrifying lightning fell, it was likely that half of the imperial capital would be destroyed. Everyone present would be turned into ashes by that terrifying lightning. Xiao Yu is still writing. His ranking on the fresh flower list is about to be destroyed. Brothers, if you still have fresh flowers, help protect your chrysanthemums. We can't let it be destroyed in an instant. That would be too disgraceful. Chapter 483. Puffed. Among all the spectators outside the Du residence, those with relatively lower cultivation directly spat out blood in the midst of this destructive aura and thunder. This kind of energy was too terrifying. No one could resist it at all. Du Xiaofu also revealed a shocked expression at this moment. This terrifying aura was even stronger than the North Vanquishing King's aura. It was extremely terrifying. I didn't expect this old fellow's cultivation to have reached such a level. Sigh. The North Vanquishing King looked at the sky and sighed softly. At this moment, he seemed to have discovered something. His expression changed a lot, and finally, it was full of emotion. Crackle. The thunderclouds in the sky churned, and it was still getting more and more intense. The low rumble of thunder resounded continuously, and the silver snake light shuttled back and forth. It was extremely terrifying, as if it was going to destroy everything. The dazzling light of thunder and lightning illuminated the entire imperial city. The terrifying and intimidating aura had already made countless people prostrate themselves and numbed the ears of many spectators. This terrifying aura and shocking and magnificent scene lasted for a few minutes. Then, thunderbolts poured down from the sky like a storm, wreaking havoc in the sky. Then, the thick thunderclouds and terrifying energy storm began to gradually dissipate. Finally, under countless shocked and terrified gazes, two resplendent figures of young Master Du wrapped in lightning talisman patterns appeared. The radiance was so bright that everyone could vaguely recognize that it was the old Guardian King and Du Yunlong. However, at this moment, the two of them were strangely connected. Du Yunlong stood upright with his arms raised and his palms spread out. The old Guardian King's body was upside down in mid-air. Their palms were tightly pressed together, and the top of their heads were vertically connected. Similarly, resplendent lightning flashed and enveloped their bodies. Crackle. A vast and shocking amount of energy seemed to be continuously flowing from the old Guardian King's body into Du Yunlong's body. Du Yunlong's eyes were tightly shut, as if he had entered a mysterious state. Crackle. At the same time, Resplendent lightning talisman patterns surged out of the old Guardian King's body, forming a palm-sized thunderball at his lower abdomen. Boom! Above the thunderball, the pressure was terrifying, as if it contained enough energy to destroy this part of the world. Resplendent lightning flashed around it, like a thunder and lightning beast roaring in the sky. Chi-la-la, the silver snake's radiance danced wildly, covering the sky and covering the earth. It shook one's soul and made one's heart tremble. Go! The old Guardian King moved. His body landed on the ground, and amidst the resplendent glow of the lightning talisman runes, the two separated their palms. Then, under the astonished gazes of the crowd, the energy lightning ball in front of him was directly smashed into Du Yunlong's forehead. Rumble! The ball of lightning landed between Du Yunlong's eyebrows. Immediately, the beautiful silver lightning overflowed and wreaked havoc, turning into countless dazzling silver snakes of light. They continuously flowed along Du Yunlong's skin and then directly entered his body and disappeared. Sigh. Standing in the air, North Vanquishing Prince looked at everything in front of him and sighed helplessly. Phew! High up in the sky, the terrifying thunderclouds dispersed and everything began to disappear. Everyone outside the Du household slowly regained their senses. Zizi, high up in the sky, the lightning talisman patterns around Du Yunlong's body also dissipated. But his eyes were still closed, and from time to time, lightning flashed around his body. At this moment, the old Guardian King seemed to have aged 30 years in an instant. His hair was white, his complexion was pale, and layers of wrinkles accumulated on his face. His aura was extremely weak and dispirited. North Vanquishing Prince looked at the old Guardian King and softly asked helplessly, "Old man, why do you have to do this? Some debts have to be repaid. I had no choice back then, but now I have to pay." The old Guardian King looked at North Vanquishing Prince with a wry smile, and then looked at Du Xiaofu. "Child, the Huangji pill has already been consumed by Du Yunlong. I can't pay it back. I will use my lifetime of cultivation to pay it back. As for how many benefits Du Yunlong can obtain, it will depend on him. My cultivation base should not be too far off from the Huangji pill. As for the debt that the Du household owes your family, every injustice has its perpetrator and every debt has its debtor. Back then, I was the head of the Du household, so naturally I have to pay it back. I can only use my old life to pay it back." When Du Xiaofu heard this, he looked at the dispirited old man in front of him. His heart trembled, and he could no longer maintain his original domineering aura. For a moment, he did not know what to say. All the descendants of the Du household, listen up. The Du household has been deeply respected by the empire for countless years, causing many people to become unruly and arrogant. They have become supercilious, disregarding human relations and ethics. This has already planted the seeds of decay in the Du household. Sooner or later, there will be a big problem. Our Du household has a golden exterior, but it has long been ruined. I hope that this incident will wake you all up. You can only blame yourselves for everything. In the future, when you do things, you must remember the rules of the Du family. You must not be arrogant." The voice of the old Guardian King slowly reverberated in the air. It was not domineering, nor was it thunderous. But when it fell into the ears of the Du household, it made everyone tremble and their souls tremble. "Grandfather!" Du Chong and Du Yunxin's eyes were filled with tears, their bodies trembling. The Guardian King once again looked at Du Xiaofu and asked, "Child, on account of my old face, can you let this matter go?" Looking at the old man in front of him, Du Xiaofu's heart was inexplicably fluctuating. He nodded his head and said, "Okay, I will let this matter go. But if the Du household still comes to provoke the Stone City's Du family and provoke me in the future, I will not be polite. Don't worry, I believe that in the future, they will not be able to provoke you, nor will they dare to provoke you." The old protector smiled faintly. His eyes were filled with benevolence as he looked at Du Xiaofu and spoke in a soft voice, "Child, you really do resemble your father. I'm going to pay my debt for what happened back then. But before that, to be able to see a junior like you in the Du clan, I'm already content. Old friend, I will take my leave first. Goodbye." The old guardian king said to the north vanquishing prince. After his voice faded, he closed his eyes, his hands drooped down, and no more words came out. Why? Why do you have to do this? Why do you have to do this? The north vanquishing prince's figure instantly appeared beside the old guardian king. A wave of energy enveloped the old guardian king's body. The old guardian king's eyes were a little moist. He then looked at the surrounding Du household members and said, "The old guardian king has passed away. Grandfather, old master." Immediately, everyone from the Du household knelt on the ground and cried out sorrowfully. Their eyes were filled with tears. The grief in their hearts was unbearable. Old guardian king, rest in peace. Among the countless spectators in the surroundings, there were some who bowed respectfully to send him off. More and more people bowed respectfully to the old man in the air, whose eyes were tightly shut. At this final moment, everyone was touched. Old man, rest in peace. Around the imperial capital, there were several hidden auras hovering in the sky. The auras fluctuated and didn't disperse for a long time. Roar! At this moment, in the depths of the vast imperial palace, a dragon's roar could be heard. It seemed to be lamenting the departure of the old guardian king. The old guardian king, the most famous expert of the Stone Dragon Empire, had fallen just like that. At this moment, the entire imperial capital was solemnly silent as they respectfully sent the old guardian king off. Father! The old guardian king went to the north vanquishing prince's side and hugged the old guardian king's body. His eyes, which were filled with lightning, were currently filled with tears. My condolences, the north vanquishing prince softly said to the old guardian king. The old guardian king slightly nodded to the north vanquishing prince. Then, he slowly disappeared into the depths of the Du household with the old guardian king's body in his arms. Following that, a faint and hoarse voice came from the sky. Du household's descendants, listen up. From today onwards, the position of patriarch of the Du household will be passed on to Du Yunxin. No objections. This old man's inheritance has been passed on to your second brother. He himself can only be like an oil lamp that has dried up. This is the price of the inheritance. At this moment, Zhang Xingchuan's rather emotional voice also sounded in Du Xiaofu's ears. Rest in peace. Looking at the body of the old protector king leaving, looking at the mess below and the Du household that was mostly in ruins, Du Xiaofu's heart did not have the slightest trace of joy after collecting a debt. Instead, he was filled with emotions, his gaze solemn as he respectfully bowed towards the sky. Rest in peace. Du Zhixiong and Du Xiaoman looked at the sky and bowed with a solemn expression. Let's go. Du Xiaofu waved his hand and a suction force wrapped around his second brother, Du Yunlong, who was not far away. He intended to leave. PFFF. At this moment, the north vanquishing prince spat out a mouthful of blood. His face suddenly became paler and his aura began to weaken. Then, he closed his eyes and a strange aura began to riot in his body. Grandfather! Xiefei's figure appeared beside North Vanquishing Prince and supported him. Her beautiful eyes were filled with worry, and her brows were tightly knitted. Grandpa Xie, what's wrong? Du Xiaofu handed Du Yunlong over to Du Xiaoqing, and immediately went to North Vanquishing King and Xiefei. Xiefei said, the poison on Grandpa's body is getting worse and worse. He can't fight anymore. I think it's because of the fight with the king. He must have been traumatized just now. Now that the poison is attacking his heart, he's in big trouble. Jin Qingquan's voice sounded in Du Xiaofu's ears again. At dusk, the sun was setting in the west, and the red clouds covered the sky. Continue writing. Ask for flowers. Chapter 484. The bamboo forest was shrouded in red clouds. Inside a simple room in a simple courtyard, the North Vanquishing Prince's dark and skinny body was lying flat on the bed. Chi-Chi, North Vanquishing Prince's aura was extremely cold. His whole body was emitting an extremely cold aura. Ordinary people could not touch him at all. Even if an ordinary martial marquis realm cultivator touched him, he would immediately be covered in frost and then frozen into ice. In front of the bed, there were dozens of elders and middle-aged men standing respectfully. They were all experts from the Xie Manor. They were all looking at the North vanquishing prince on the bed with concern. The poison is attacking the heart. What a powerful ice poison. Beside the bed, Du Xiaofu withdrew his hand seal. His expression was solemn and his brows were tightly knitted. Du Xiaofu knew that the North vanquishing prince was injured by the ice poison. If it was mild, the poison could be suppressed for a while. However, the ice poison in the North vanquishing prince's body was too severe. It had reached the point where it was attacking his heart. Du Xiaofu had some knowledge in alchemy, but he didn't know much about poison. Therefore, he was at his wit's end. Grandfather's poison is too severe. The ice poison of the ferocious beast in the Arctic glacier is too terrifying. Even if grandfather cultivates the ice attribute cultivation method and understands the ice attribute profound, he still can't resist it. This time, I'm afraid. Xie Fei's delicate face was filled with worry. Her eyes had lost their usual vigor, and her brows were tightly knitted. It was hard not to feel pity for her. Xie Fei knew the horror of the poison in her grandfather's body. All these years, she had asked countless people to help her grandfather, but they couldn't remove the poison in his body. They couldn't even suppress it. It was said that there was someone in the palace who could suppress the poison for a while, but her grandfather never went to find him. She could understand some of the reasons behind this. If the person in the imperial palace suppressed them, then if a powerful enemy suddenly appeared in the empire, the consequences would be worrying. It seemed that it was also because of this that her grandfather didn't go to the imperial palace to say anything for the sake of the empire. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu looked at the Xie clan's experts and the middle-aged man in the room and said, "Seniors, can you please wait outside? I want to check Grandpa Xie again. If there are too many people, it might affect me." "Okay, we will stand guard outside. Please do your best. If you can save him, I will be very grateful." A middle-aged man with an extraordinary bearing said to Du Xiaofu, his eyes full of worry, "Don't worry. I'll do my best. I hope Grandpa Xie will be fine," Du Xiaofu said. "Thank you," the middle-aged man said. Then, he led everyone out of the room and closed the door behind him. Xie Fei looked up at Du Xiaofu and asked, "Should I go out?" "No need. But remember to keep this a secret for me." Du Xiaofu shook his head. Then, he took out a small pagoda and said softly, "Brother Qing Chun, you can come out now." Phew, the small pagoda was covered with mysterious runes. Then, under Xie Fei's stunned gaze, Zhen Qingchuan's wretched Yuan spirit body appeared in the room. He immediately began to check North vanquishing prince's body. Zhen Qingchun appeared because Du Xiaofu wanted to ask his big brother Zhen Qingchun to check on North vanquishing prince's condition. That was why he asked the Xie clan's people to leave first. Seeing the illusory figure examining her grandfather, Xie Fei was confused and curious. However, she didn't ask. However, the shock on Xie Fei's face was self-evident. Obviously, that was the body of a primordial spirit. Any expert who could have a primordial spirit was a legendary existence. Even if it was just a primordial spirit, it was absolutely terrifying. At this moment, Xie Fei couldn't help but think. No wonder Du Xiaofu dared to say that he could flatten the Du household in front of the two protector kings. It turned out that other than Du Xiaoqing, he had such a terrifying backing. Of course, Xie Fei didn't know that Zhen Qingchun hadn't recovered much. However, Xie Fei's guess was right. Du Xiaofu relied on Zhen Qingchun to deal with the protector king today. Although Zhen Qingchuan's Yuan spirit body hadn't recovered much, with his identity as a talisman master and Du Xiaoqing's help, according to what Zhen Qingchun said to Du Xiaofu, the two of them could definitely deal with the Protector King and Du Qingqing. Whoosh whoosh, a series of hand seals landed on the North vanquishing monarch's body. Zhen Qingchuan's illusory face became serious. After a while, he withdrew his hand seals and looked at Du Xiaofu and Xie Fei. "I have good news and bad news. Which one do you want to hear first?" "Let's talk about the bad news first." Du Xiaofu asked Zhen Qingchun. Hearing Zhen Qingchuan's tone, it seemed like the situation wasn't irreversible. The poison has been in his body for a long time. It has already seeped into his organs and bone marrow. Now, the poison is attacking his heart. If he didn't cultivate an ice attribute cultivation method, he would have died long ago. Zhen Qingchun said to Du Xiaofu, "Senior, What's the good news? Xie asked nervously. Although Zhen Qingchun didn't look much different from Du Xiaofu right now, he was an expert with the Yuan spirit. He probably wasn't as simple as he looked, so he respectfully called him senior. Zhen Qingchuan's body was illusory, but his eyes were bright and clear. He glanced at Xie and said, "The good news is that the poison is from the ice frost serpent. Is that good news?" Xie couldn't help but smile bitterly as she looked at Zhen Qingchun in confusion. The poison from the ice frost serpent was terrifying, yet this Yuan spirit expert said it was good news. Of course it's not good news for others. It's a nightmare. But with this kid here, it'll be much easier. Zhen Qingchun said indifferently. Then he looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "Have you forgotten about the poison from the fiery serpent and the thunderous lion? Are you saying?" Du Xiaofu's eyes brightened. Back in the stone city, the thunderous lion was poisoned by the fiery serpent. Coincidentally, Du Xiaofu cultivated the cultivation method of the golden rock, so the blood in his body was similar to the blood of the golden rock. It was said that in ancient times, the rocks fed on dragons. The rocks were the natural nemesis of dragons, so they were able to suppress and eliminate the poison from the fiery serpent. The ice frost serpent is also a serpent. It's one of the descendants of dragons. It's similar to the fiery serpent. Of course you can suppress and eliminate it, Zhen Qingchun said to Du Xiaofu, but now the poison is attacking your heart. The result is hard to predict. If you could suppress it earlier, it would be much easier. It's all my fault. Du Xiaofu was very upset. Because he was a medicine talisman master, he didn't dabble in anything other than alchemy. Therefore, he didn't pay much attention to the poison on the North Vanquishing King. If he could understand it earlier, maybe things wouldn't be like this now. Creak. Outside the courtyard in the bamboo forest, the door opened and closed. Xie walked out slowly. "Fair, how's the situation?" A big man immediately went up to Xie and asked nervously, "Xiaofu is treating Grandpa, but the final result is not clear yet. There should be a 50% chance," Xie said to the crowd. From the conversation between Du Xiaofu and Zhen Qingchun, she knew that there was only a 50% chance. At this moment, Du Xiaofu was already treating the wound, so she left the room. With Du Xiaofu's special order, Xie naturally wouldn't leak the secret of Zhen Qingchuan's existence. It's good that there's a chance. Nothing must happen to Grandpa. The middle-aged man and many other Xie family members were relieved, but they still looked serious. Then, half of them stayed in the bamboo forest to protect the North Vanquishing King. At this moment, in the room, Du Xiaofu set up a seal. Looking at North Vanquishing Prince, whose aura was getting weaker and colder on the bed, he took a deep breath and a dagger appeared in his hand. Swish, as the dagger slid across Du Xiaofu's wrist, a stream of pale golden blood immediately condensed. Within the pale golden blood, there were mysterious runes fluctuating, as if they were about to condense into the illusory figure of a golden-winged rock and fly out. Boom! The moment Du Xiaofu dripped the pale golden blood into North Vanquishing King's mouth, North Vanquishing King's body, which was gradually turning cold, suddenly trembled. There was an extremely hidden icy aura that immediately trembled, as if it was under some kind of shocking suppression. Swish! After helping North Vanquishing King to sit cross-legged, Du Xiaofu also sat cross-legged behind North Vanquishing King. His hand seals changed, and then a pale golden profound energy gushed out from his body and rushed into North Vanquishing King's body. Walala! A moment later, a pale gray aura slowly overflowed from North Vanquishing King's body, turning into flickering black runes. Then, it was destroyed by a tyrannical golden rune. Time slowly passed. Du Xiaofu was dispelling North Vanquishing King's poison in the bamboo forest, but the entire Stone Dragon Empire's imperial capital was in an uproar. The fall of a guardian king, the destruction of the Du household, and the death of an expert. This news was like a storm, spreading to the entire Stone Dragon Empire. The legend of the Du household is about to come to an end. From now on, the Du household that stood tall in the imperial capital is going downhill. That's not necessarily true. The Du household still has the Guardian King and the outstanding Du Chong. As long as they are here, the Du household will still exist. No matter how strong the Du household is, it can't be compared to the Courage God Mansion. If the Guardian King didn't protect the Du household today, I'm afraid the Du household would be completely razed to the ground by the Courage God Mansion. Night fell. In the Imperial Palace, the group of beasts on the Golden Dragon Palace flickered under the reflection of the moon and the stars, making the palace appear mysterious and quiet. Chapter 485. Inside the Golden Dragon Palace, first Princess Chengshengnan asked Emperor Cheng, "Father, something happened at the Du household and the Protector King passed away. Should we do something about it?" Ah, the Protector King had his reasons for what happened back then. On one hand, it was for the Du household, and on the other hand, it was for the entire empire. Those powerful enemies were strong enough to raise the empire to the ground with a wave of their hand. That's why I've been trying to strengthen the empire all these years, and that's why I want you to go to the Divine Light Court. Emperor Cheng sighed softly. He looked at First Princess Chengshengnan and said, "The Protector King saved Du Cheng with his own life, and also left a favor for the Du family in the Stone City." He thought about the long term. Indeed, the older the ginger, the spicier it is. The Protector King's actions are also admirable. Spread the word that the entire empire will mourn and hold a state funeral. You will also represent me and go to the Du household to pay respects to the Protector King. I understand. Don't worry, father. First Princess Chengshengnan nodded. By the way, something seems to be wrong with the North Vanquishing King. The poison on his body may have worsened. You will also go and take a look for me. If the Xia household needs anything, except for that matter, do it at all costs. We just lost a Protector King. We can't lose the North Vanquishing King as well. Any Protector King is a pillar of the entire Stone Dragon Empire. Emperor Cheng said, "Yes, I will arrange it." First Princess Chengshengnan nodded again. "You've been back for a long time. When will you return to the Divine Light Court?" Emperor Cheng looked at Chengshengnan again and asked. Chengshengnnan's eyes flickered, and a purple-robed figure appeared in her mind. She then said, "I will return to the Divine Light Court in a few days. It will also be good for me to inquire about the situation in the sect." TSK. 3 days later, in the courtyard of the bamboo forest, Du Xiaofu, who was sitting cross-legged, withdrew his hand seal, and the light golden halo of Xian Qi around him retracted into his body, revealing his pale face. The consumption of 3 days was too much for Du Xiaofu to bear. The consumption of Xian Qi to help North Vanquishing Ice Dragon's cold poison in his body was too shocking. Du Xiaofu was almost exhausted. However, the effect was better than he had imagined, which made Du Xiaofu feel a little relieved. Fortunately, most of the cold poison accumulated in North Vanquishing Prince's body had been removed. However, the cold poison had attacked North Vanquishing Prince's heart and had already corroded his internal organs and bone marrow. It was not easy to completely remove it. Zhun Qingchuan's illusory figure floated into the room. He said to Du Xiaofu, "It should be about time. You've done your best. The rest is up to him and the will of the heavens." Okay. Du Xiaofu nodded at Zhun Qingchuan. Looking at North Vanquishing Prince, who was currently wrapped in a layer of faint golden light, Du Xiaofu's sharp mental energy probed him. He felt that everything about North Vanquishing Prince seemed to be developing in a good direction, and he let out a sigh of relief. Whether or not North Vanquishing Ice Dragon could completely remove the cold poison in his body would depend on how much rock blood he could absorb to expel the cold poison. If everything went well, North Vanquishing Prince would be able to successfully detoxify the cold poison in his body. At that time, he would naturally be able to recover to his original state. North Vanquishing Prince will be fine. The brave God King will definitely have a way to remove the cold poison in his body. Outside the courtyard of the bamboo forest, a woman dressed in an orange-red outfit stood quietly. She had a pair of slender and tall legs, a slim waist that could not be grasped with one hand, and the curves in front of her chest outlined a graceful and exquisite arc. "I hope so," a charming woman said softly. She was slightly older than the woman in the outfit. Her waist was slim and her skin was smooth. She didn't wear any makeup and her lips weren't red. However, her brows were tightly knitted at this moment. The two ladies were Princess Chengshengnan and Xie Fei. At this moment, There were many experts from Prince Xie's mansion outside the courtyard. They were guarding nervously and didn't dare to disturb the situation in the room. Creak. While everyone was nervous, the courtyard door creaked open. A young man carrying a purple broadsword on his back walked out slowly. His face was extremely pale. "How's Grandpa?" Xie Fei went up to Du Xiaofu and asked immediately. The surrounding people from Prince Xie's mansion were also filled with anticipation. There should be an 80% chance. The rest will depend on Grandpa Xie and Heaven's will. Don't let anyone disturb him, Du Xiaofu said to Xie Fei. 80% chance. Xie Fei's knitted brows relaxed a little. She looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "Thank you." When the surrounding people from Prince Xie's mansion heard this, their nervous expressions relaxed a little. "No need to thank me. Don't forget that I'm also half a Xie's." Grandpa Xie said that. Du Xiaofu looked at the charming woman in front of him and smiled faintly. Xie Fei smiled and didn't say anything else. No one knew what she was thinking. Suddenly, her cheeks blushed a little. "I didn't expect you to have such ability. If North Vanquishing Prince recovers, you will have done a great deed for the empire." The eldest princess, Cheng Shengnan, stepped forward. Her tall and fiery figure made it hard for people to shift their gazes away from her. She passed an extraordinary medicinal pill to Du Xiaofu and said, "You seem to have consumed a lot of energy. Quickly consume this pill." "Thank you." Du Xiaofu took the pill and put it in his mouth. "What do you plan to do next?" Cheng Shengnan asked Du Xiaofu. "I want to go back to Stone City." Du Xiaofu was worried about his uncle's injury. If it wasn't for North Vanquishing Prince's cold poison, he would have already left for Stone City. "When are you leaving?" Xie Fei heard this and immediately asked. "I can't help Grandpa Xie with his cold poison anymore. So, I plan to leave now," Du Xiaofu said to Xie Fei. Back to Stone City, the first Princess Cheng Shengnan suddenly looked at Du Xiaofu. Her bright eyes slightly moved, revealing a trace of surprise. She waved her hand and her red lips gently opened. "I also want to go to Stone City." "You're going too?" Du Xiaofu and Xie Fei heard this and showed a puzzled expression. "That's right. Since I don't have much to do recently, I want to go to Stone City and see what the place where you grew up is like." Princess Cheng Shengnan smiled like a beautiful rose blooming on her cheeks. She seemed to have made up her mind. She looked at Du Xiaofu with a hint of warning and said, "Brave king, you won't not take me, right? Stone City is only a small place. I'm just afraid that you won't be used to it." Du Xiaofu frowned and said. Cheng Shengnan lowered her slightly raised eyelashes, and her tall figure walked in front of Du Xiaofu. Suddenly, she leaned over to Du Xiaofu's ear. A delicate fragrance filled the air. Her red lips slightly opened as she whispered to Du Xiaofu, "If you don't take me there, I won't let you off for what happened in the hot spring. You can do as you deem fit." Du Xiaofu heard this and was stunned. He looked at the tall girl who was almost as tall as him and said, "You said that we'll forget about it and won't pursue it anymore? When did I say that? I don't remember." Cheng Shengnan sneered. Du Xiaofu stared at Cheng Shengnan for a moment. He took a deep breath and said helplessly, "Then go back and pack up. We'll leave later." Cheng Shengnan moved in front of Xie Fei and said, "Sister Fei, please send someone to the palace and tell them that I'm going to Stone City with the brave God King. Tell my father that he doesn't need to worry." This, Xie Fei's delicate face slightly froze. She stood there and said, "Okay, I'll arrange it." After saying that, Xie Fei looked at the eldest princess Cheng Shengnan and the purple-robed young man in front of her. Her eyes flickered with light and disappeared as soon as she finished her sentence. Xie Fei's heart skipped a beat. "I think you must be thinking of leaving when I return to the palace. With the speed of that black demon tiger, I'm afraid I won't be able to catch up even if I want to, right?" Cheng Shengnan slightly raised her head and looked at Du Xiaofu with a faint smile on her face. She seemed very proud. Sometimes, it's not good for a woman to be too smart. Du Xiaofu helplessly stared at first Princess Cheng Shengnan. That was exactly what he was thinking. He didn't expect Cheng Shengnan to directly expose him. After saying that, he nodded at Xie Fei and left the bamboo forest. Cheng Shengnan caught up to Du Xiaofu and followed him closely. She was afraid that Du Xiaofu would leave her behind, so she asked, "Who said that it's not good for a woman to be smart?" A servant in my family said that smart women are always worrisome. Du Xiaofu said, Don't worry, I'm only going to Stone City to take a look. I won't cause you any trouble, Cheng Xingnan said. In the Courage God Mansion, after Du Xiaofu handed the mansion over to Phantom, he brought second uncle Du Zhixiang, big sister Du Xiaoman, Du Xiaoqing, and Du Xiaoyao to the little tigers back to Stone City. Of course, first Princess Cheng Shengnan was following closely behind. As for second brother Du Yunlong, he was receiving the inheritance from the old protector king, so it was naturally inconvenient for him to travel. Ouyang Shuang saw that first Princess Cheng Shengnan wanted to go with them, but she didn't seem to want to go either. Thus, Du Xiaofu asked Ouyang Shuang to take care of second brother Du Yunlong. He was worried about first uncle's situation, so he quickly left. Ouyang Shuang's eyes moved slightly as she watched the purple-robed young man on Little Tiger's back and the eldest princess Cheng Shengnan leave. She then looked at the white clouds in the sky and smiled bitterly. On the Black Tiger, when Du Zhixiang found out about first Princess Cheng Shengnan's identity, he was also very surprised. He looked at Du Xiaofu and first princess with a strange expression in his eyes. Chapter 486. On the back of the little tiger, first Princess Cheng Shengnan was extremely obedient in front of Du Zhixiang. Her relationship with Du Xiaoman and Du Xiaoqing was also quite good. She beat around the bush and found out many things about Du Xiaofu's childhood from Du Xiaoman and Du Zhixiang. When she heard that Du Xiaofu was still the foolish young master of the entire Stone City 2 years ago, the first princess was also very surprised. However, she still cast a sidelong glance at Du Xiaofu and teased him. When she heard that Du Xiaofu and his drunkard father had always depended on each other since young, ripples appeared in the first princess's eyes. She secretly looked at the purple-robed young man who was sitting cross-legged not far away, and the light in her eyes seemed to have changed. This first princess seems to like you. Du Xiaoyao sat beside Du Xiaofu and looked at Cheng Shengnan, who was talking to Du Zhixiang. Then, she cast a sidelong glance at Du Xiaofu and said, Take advantage of your free time to cultivate properly. Du Xiaofu glared at Du Xiaoyao, then turned to look at the first princess behind him. He formed a hand seal and began to regulate his breathing. Stone City, a small city at the border beside the Savage Beast mountain range. It was still as fierce and aggressive as ever. Among the various powers in Stone City, the Du family's position was getting higher and higher. The news of Vice City Lord Du Xiaofu obtaining first place in the Tianwu Academy's Tianwu competition and being conferred the title of Marquis in the imperial capital had already spread through various channels, causing the entire Stone City to be in an uproar. Several days later, at the border of the Savage Beast mountain range, Stone City, the sky was vast and boundless. Dusk. Everything was shrouded in the boundless mist of dusk, appearing transparent and quiet. Accompanied by the glow of the setting sun, red clouds covered the sky. Roar. Suddenly, a tiger's roar resounded from the sky above the Stone City. That soul-shaking roar caused the residents of the Stone City to feel a sense of familiarity. In the sky, the clouds rippled, and a huge ink-black tiger flapped its wings in mid-air. Its aura was so terrifying that it made people tremble in fear for no reason. There were several figures standing on top of the giant tiger. The one in the lead was a purple-robed young man with a purple broadsword on his back. His face was resolute and determined, and his eyes were clear under his sharp eyebrows. That's the Vice City Lord. There's also the second master of the Du family and the eldest daughter of the Du family. It must be because the Du family was provoked by some experts some time ago, so the second master went to find the Vice City Lord. Looking at the purple-robed young man on the black tiger, the entire Stone City was in an uproar. Third young master is back. Second master and eldest miss are also back. Outside the Du family, the courtyard was still the same as before. When a huge black tiger flapped its wings and appeared outside the Du family, many of the Du family's disciples were overjoyed. Many of the elders also came out after hearing the news. Brother Xiaofu, you're back? Nice to meet you, Brother Xiaofu. The younger generation of the Du family, Du Yu, Du Shui, and the others all came forward to greet him. Du Chong, Du Hao, Du Gue, and the others also came forward enthusiastically. Of course, Their gazes fell on Du Shaoqing, Du Xiaoyao, and the eldest princess, Cheng Xingnan. They were also surprised by the eldest princess and Du Shaoqing. Great Elder, how is my eldest uncle now? Great Elder Du Xiaofu was also in the crowd at this time. Du Xiaofu immediately asked as he was most worried about his eldest uncle's situation. Yesterday, there was an expert who came, saying that he was entrusted by you to check on the family head's injuries. He has been in the room all this time, so we don't know the situation now. Great Elder said to Du Xiaofu, the king of medicine. It must be the king of medicine. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu heaved a sigh of relief. With the king of medicine's help, his eldest uncle's situation should be much more stable. With the return of Du Xiaofu, Du Zhixiang, Du Xiaoman, and the others, the entire Du family was very lively. The identity of the eldest princess, Cheng Xingnan, was also spread by Du Zhixiang, which shocked everyone in the Du family even more. The Du family had never had such a noble with such a high status visit before. When the gossipy ladies of the Du family saw that the eldest princess seemed to have an extraordinary relationship with Du Xiaofu, and the news from Du Zhixiang, they were all very happy. The news immediately spread in the Du family. Not long after, because of Du Xiaofu's return, the head of the Bai family, Bai Jiru, and the city lord, Yi Baolin, personally brought people to the Du family. Regardless of the reason, with Du Xiaofu's identity as the Courage King, they still had to pay him a visit. With the arrival of these two people, Du Xiaofu had no choice but to go out and meet them. When Yi Baolin, Bai Jiru, and the others found out that the eldest princess was also in the Du family, they were even more shocked. After bowing one after another, they saw that the eldest princess seemed to have an extraordinary relationship with Du Xiaofu, and they could not help but speculate in that direction. After chatting for a while, Yi Baolin and Bai Jiru left. The twilight had already turned blurry, and the sky that was filled with the glow of the sunset gradually calmed down. Then, stars hung in the dark blue night sky, and a crescent moon silently climbed into the sky. Du Xiaofu stood in front of a courtyard, and there were faint energy fluctuations spreading out from it. You're back? Come in. Suddenly, a familiar voice came from outside the courtyard. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu's eyes moved slightly, and he immediately went forward to push open the door and entered the room. Inside the room, at this moment, there was an old man in a gray robe whose long sleeves were trembling slightly. His face was slightly pale, and his eyes were slightly narrowed as he looked at Du Xiaofu. His voice was slightly old, and he said faintly, "You're living quite comfortably, being conferred the title of Marquis, and having me work hard for you in Chaos Demon City. Just a word from you, and I still have to rush over without stopping. To be able to leave all the work to you, you can be considered unprecedented. Thank you for your hard work, Elder Yi." Du Xiaofu respectfully bowed to the Medicine King, and his heart was filled with gratitude. In this world, how many people could make the dignified Medicine King Yi Wuming rush over from Chaos Demon City without stopping? Du Xiaofu would remember this favor deeply in his heart. Kid, don't be so polite. Your uncle's injuries are indeed very serious. Someone attacked and injured his internal organs, and also affected his soul. Fortunately, during this period of time, a Beast King protected his chi, otherwise, no one would be able to save him. The Medicine King Yi Wuming glanced at Du Xiaofu, then looked at the figure sitting cross-legged on the bed and said, "I have already healed your uncle's internal organs, and also his soul. There are no major problems. He should be able to wake up in 3 or 4 days, but it will affect his cultivation in the future. It's good that he's fine. Thank you, Elder Yi." Du Xiaofu bowed again. The Medicine King, Dr. Wuming, was indeed worthy of his reputation. Looking at the big man who was sitting cross-legged on the bed, surrounded by a strange layer of faint fluorescent light, Du Xiaofu relaxed completely. "I need to rest for a while. Tomorrow, I will talk to you about Chaos Demon City." The Medicine King stretched and said to Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu nodded and personally brought the Medicine King to find a quiet courtyard for him to rest. Only then did he go back. Under the moonlight, the courtyard that he had not seen for a long time still looked the same. There were no changes. Du Xiaofu stepped into the courtyard. A rattan chair was placed there quietly, and it seemed a little quiet and empty. Looking at the quiet rattan chair, Du Xiaofu seemed to see a drunken man sleeping soundly, hugging a gourd of wine in his arms, unwilling to let go. "Father, where are you now?" After a while, Du Xiaofu smiled bitterly. Since he was young, the scene that he had seen the most in this courtyard was his father often hugging a wine gourd and looking at the sky. The smell of wine filled the air, and then he fell asleep drunk. And now, he still didn't know where his father had gone. And where was he? Suddenly, Du Xiaofu frowned and his figure suddenly disappeared. When Du Xiaofu's figure appeared again, he was already in his room. At this time, he saw that in his room, there was an exquisite and curvaceous woman looking around. It was the eldest princess, Chengxingnan. "You're back?" Turning around and seeing Du Xiaofu, the eldest princess smiled and immediately went up to Du Xiaofu and said, "The people in your family are very enthusiastic. Today, they told me a lot of things about your past. Is this your room? Why are you here? Where are little Qing and the others?" Du Xiaofu asked in astonishment. He didn't expect that the eldest princess would be in his room at this time of the night. "It was your aunts who asked me to come. They said that I can stay here temporarily. Little Qing and Sister Xiaoman are together. Little Demon Du, that little tiger, I don't know where he ran off to," the eldest princess said to Du Xiaofu. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu looked at the woman in front of him and couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed that his aunts were worried about him again. The eldest princess looked at Du Xiaofu and frowned slightly. Her red lips parted slightly and said, "You seem to be very afraid of me. Am I really that scary?" "Am I?" Du Xiaofu curled his lips and said, "You think too much. Are you afraid that I'll eat you?" Suddenly, the first princess looked at Du Xiaofu and smiled. Her exquisite and slender body purposely straightened, forming an alluring curve. Under the dim and hazy light, it was even more captivating. Her pearly white teeth parted slightly as she laughed tenderly. "You can't really be afraid that I'll eat you, right?" Du Xiaofu was stunned for a moment. After that, he turned around and left. His voice rang out, "You can sleep in my room. Rest early. I'll sleep in my father's room." Looking at Du Xiaofu's departing figure, the eldest princess's bright eyes were half closed. She gently stroked her jade-like face and then looked at the open window in the room. The moonlight shrouded the room and it was quiet outside. She raised her head slightly and a smile appeared on her lips. She pursed her lips and said softly, "This fellow looks fierce and domineering. I didn't expect that there would be so many stories behind him." Chapter 487. In the drunkard's father's room, everything was still the same as before. Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged on the bed, but his mind was thinking about many things. The matter of the Du household and the death of the old protector king had moved Du Xiaofu even more. Du Xiaofu had an indescribable feeling towards the death of the old protector king. That feeling made his heart faintly ache. From what he had learned, how could Du Xiaofu not know that even if the Du household had gone all out, they still wouldn't have been able to fend off those terrifying people? The anger he felt towards the Du household was only because some people in the Du household had bullied and humiliated the Du family. Du Xiaofu was clear in his heart that in the end, those terrifying people were the main culprits who had torn his family apart. His spirit root had been sealed at birth, and the person who had done it was extremely strong. So strong that even if his big brother Jin Qingchun had been at his peak, it would have been very difficult for him to undo the seal. This made Du Xiaofu think of those terrifying people. "No matter who you are, one day, I will find you." Du Xiaofu gritted his teeth and murmured softly. His clear eyes surged with a hint of sharpness. A moment later, his body was enveloped in a white glow, spreading like a white divine light and emitting an ancient aura. The night passed, and the next morning, the red sun shone down rays of golden light from the eastern horizon, driving away the darkness. Phew! Du Xiaofu exhaled a mouthful of turbid air from his mouth. His eyes opened, flashing with a bright light. Immediately after, they converged into a clear and bright light. A moment later, in a small hall in a quiet courtyard, Du Xiaofu and the Medicine King Yi Wuming sat upright. "How is it in the Stone Dragon Empire's imperial capital? I heard you were conferred the title of Marquis. You were very impressive. the Medicine King said with a smile as he looked at Du Xiaofu. After a night of recuperation, he had probably taken some medicinal pills. His slightly pale complexion had already recovered its rosy color. "Oldie, don't make fun of me." Du Xiaofu laughed bitterly, and a helpless smile appeared on his face as he said, "How's the situation in Chaos Demon City?" "Right now, the situation in Chaos Demon City is rather troublesome. Even the entire Dark Forest is extremely complicated right now." Medicine King Yi sighed softly. From Medicine King Yi, Du Xiaofu learned that the World Society, which had Medicine King Yi, Eagle King Gong Dao, and Yi Piaoling, Hua Fankong, and the others in Chaos Demon City, had long since taken control of the various large, medium, and small factions in Chaos Demon City. The World Society had risen in Chaos Demon City in such a short time. Although it couldn't be said to have a strong foundation, it had a 6-star Spirit Talisman Master and Eagle King Gong Dao. On the surface, it was enough to contend with the one pavilion and one fort. This naturally attracted the attention and wariness of the two sections. Chaos Demon City was also rather special. Not only were there humans in Chaos Demon City, but there were also many powerful monster experts. The one pavilion, one fort, and two sects didn't dare to rashly go against them. The rise of the World Society in Chaos Demon City was naturally not something that the monster forces were happy to see. This was definitely a huge threat to the monster forces. Therefore, the World Society had encountered extremely troublesome matters in Chaos Demon City. They had conflicts with many powerful monster beasts, and there had even been several skirmishes, causing the World Society to suffer many casualties. In Chaos Demon City, there are actually very few humans. More than half of them are monster beasts. Those that can live in Chaos Demon City are extremely powerful monster beasts. Among them, there are 3 monster beasts at the Beast King realm, the Medicine King said to Du Xiaofu with a serious expression. 3 monster beasts at the Beast King realm? When Du Xiaofu heard this, he couldn't help but gasp. 3 monster beasts at the Beast King realm were equivalent to 3 Martial King experts. Moreover, in comparison to the demon beasts and humans, the demon beasts were generally more tyrannical than the demon beasts. Therefore, there was no doubt that there were 3 extraordinary Martial King experts. No wonder the one pavilion, one fort, and 2 sects didn't dare to touch Chaos Demon City all these years. The Medicine King continued to say to Du Xiaofu, "The 3 monster beasts at the Beast King realm are not simple. They are all ranked on the Earth Beast list. One of them is a tiger-subduing mastiff at the Beast King realm, and the other is a blue flame red panther at the Beast King realm." Blue flame red panther, tiger-subduing mastiff. Du Xiaofu was shocked again. The blue flame red panther and tiger-subduing mastiff were not simple. They were ranked at the top of the Earth Beast list and were at the Beast King realm. One could imagine their strength. What are you surprised about? The most terrifying one is not the blue flame red panther and tiger-subduing mastiff. The King of Medicine looked at Du Xiaofu. His gaze was solemn as he said, "The most terrifying one is a silver-winged demonic condor. A silver-winged demonic condor that recently broke through from the Beast King realm to the Beast King realm's Nirvana realm. The silver-winged demonic condor is ranked in the top 10 of the Earth Beast list. It is rumored that the silver-winged demonic condor is very lecherous." "Is it the silver-winged demonic condor?" Du Xiaofu was deeply shocked. It was rumored that the silver-winged demonic condor was ranked in the top 10 of the Earth Beast list. It was the monster closest to the Heavenly Beast list. Any of the top 10 demonic beasts on the Earth Beast list was extremely powerful. All of them were kings among the demonic beasts. The silver-winged demonic condor had reached the Nirvana realm of the Martial Lord realm. It was easy to imagine how terrifying its strength was. There is only one silver-winged demonic condor in this world. The Medicine King looked at Du Xiaofu with a grave expression. He said, "In the Chaos Demon City, the one pavilion, one castle, and 2 sects have never dared to interfere. Apart from being afraid of the demonic beasts in the city, they are actually most afraid of the 3 terrifying Beast King realm demonic beasts. The World Society was fine in the Chaos Demon City a while ago. They weren't disturbed too much by the demonic beasts. It's probably because the silver-winged demonic condor was breaking through. But recently, the silver-winged demonic condor has broken through. All the beasts have become unstable. If they were not afraid of the one pavilion, one castle, and two sects joining forces to attack the world society, they would have attacked us long ago. In that case, the world society does not seem to be safe now. Hearing the Medicine King's words, Du Xiaofu also became serious. The three Beast King realm monsters were eyeing the Chaos Demon City covetously. Their foundation was not stable. The world society, which had no foundation, would not be able to fight against the three Beast King realm experts by relying on the Medicine King and Eagle King Gong Dao. Moreover, there should be many other monsters around. Naturally, it's not very safe. I came out this time in secret. If those demonic beasts knew that I left the world society and that only Eagle King Gong Dao was guarding the Chaos Demon City, I'm afraid they would immediately surround and attack. The Medicine King Yi Wuming was worried. He looked at Du Xiaofu and said seriously, "Your uncle should be fine, so I want to go back as soon as possible. When your uncle wakes up, I think you will have to make a trip to the Chaos Demon City. After all, you are the president of the World Society. If you don't deal with the three Beast King realm monsters, I'm afraid the World Society will not be able to establish itself in the Chaos Demon City for much longer. After half a year of hard work, we have just gained a foothold in the Chaos Demon City. If something happens, half a year of hard work will go to waste." After pausing for a moment, the Medicine King continued to say to Du Xiaofu, "Moreover, the one pavilion, one castle, and two sects are eyeing us covetously. I'm afraid that as soon as the monsters start fighting with us, the one pavilion, one castle, and one castle will take advantage of the situation and fish in troubled waters." "I understand. After Uncle is fine, I will immediately head to the Chaos Demon City." Du Xiaofu nodded. He understood the situation that the Medicine King Yi Wuming was talking about. The Dark Forest was already chaotic, and with the threat of the three Beast King realm monsters in the Chaos Demon City, the World Society was struggling to survive. If they were not careful, half a year of hard work would go to waste. With the one pavilion and one castle eyeing them covetously, they had no choice but to be careful. After the two chatted for a while, they began to talk about refining tools again. The Medicine King had also heard that Du Xiaofu had attracted a lightning tribulation and refined a high-grade Dao tool. He wanted to take a look. "It's completely natural. What a good sword." When he saw Du Xiaofu take out the tyrannical shadow, the Medicine King couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Du Xiaofu also explained the situation of refining the tyrannical shadow to the Medicine King. Being able to refine the tyrannical shadow was all thanks to Vice President Zhuge Qiangbang. In fact, he only played a part in it at the end. It was also a coincidence and luck. Vice President Zhuge Qiangbang, the Medicine King, held the tyrannical shadow and murmured softly. There was an imperceptible fluctuation in his eyes. Then the two talked a lot about refining puppets. From the smile on the Medicine King's face, it wasn't difficult for Du Xiaofu to know that the Medicine King had benefited a lot from the part of the secret soldier formula that he had given to the Medicine King. Then Du Xiaofu secretly hesitated in his heart and gave the Medicine King a part of the sacred body formula. He also gave the Medicine King some of the hidden parts of the secret soldier formula. After the Medicine King saw the sacred body formula, he was even more shocked. Of course, the most important parts of the secret soldier formula and the sacred body formula were kept by Du Xiaofu. It wasn't that Du Xiaofu didn't trust the Medicine King, but the secret soldier formula and the sacred body formula were his master's painstaking efforts. Passing a part of the secret soldier formula and the sacred body formula to the Medicine King and Vice President Zhuge Qiangbang was already the limit. Du Xiaofu naturally didn't dare to pass out all of it, unless his master, the sacred body formula, agreed. Unknowingly, the two of them chatted for an entire day. They chatted from dawn until dusk. It wasn't until Big Sister Du Xiaoman came to find them that they knew it was already dusk. The Medicine King Yi Wuming also looked at the sky and decided to return to Chaos Demon City first. He was worried about the situation in Chaos Demon City. Because he was worried about the World Assembly, Du Xiaofu didn't ask him to stay. After all, when his uncle was fine, he had to hurry to Chaos Demon City as soon as possible. Today's update is complete. Chapter 488. Outside the Du residence, Du Xiaofu sent the Medicine King Yi Wuming to the gates of the Du residence. Watching the Medicine King leave, His eyes narrowed as he muttered, "Looks like I have to make a trip to the chaotic demon city as soon as possible. 3 beast kings, what a headache." Many representatives from the Stone City came to visit today, but they were all rejected by the elders, Du Xiaoman said to Du Xiaofu. She knew that her third brother did not like unnecessary social interactions. And Du Xiaofu smiled, then asked Du Xiaoman, "Big sister, where are little Qing, little Yao, and the first princess?" Du Shui brought little Qing and Du Xiao out of the back of the mountain to play. "I don't know where the first princess went. Maybe she went out with little Qing and the others," Du Xiaoman replied to Du Xiaofu. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu's eyes moved. He said to Du Xiaoman, "Big sister, I'll make a trip to the Yi residence." Okay. Du Xiaoman did not say anything else. Stone City, Yi residence. Everything was still the same as before. There were not many changes. When night fell, Du Xiaofu's figure appeared outside the Yi residence. When the members of the Yi residence saw Du Xiaofu, they immediately became excited. Soon after, the entire Yi residence became lively. Not long after Du Xiaofu entered the Yi residence, Yi Baolin and a few other experts of the Yi family hurried over. They did not stand on ceremony and were extremely casual. Du Xiaofu's gaze swept across the few Yi clan experts beside Yi Baolin. His eyes moved slightly, but he did not see the elegant and cool young lady. Yi Baolin smiled at Du Xiaofu. After which, he sighed softly and said, "After leaving the Stone City, you have made great achievements in the Tianwu Academy and the capital. Zijin has also gone out to explore the world. I wonder how she is doing now." "Missy has left Stone City?" Du Xiaofu shrugged. He didn't expect that Yi Zijin had also left Stone City. Zijin, that girl, has always wanted to go out and broaden her horizons. I can't out-talk her. Not long after you left Stone City, she also left. Although I'm worried, I don't know where she is now." Yi Baolin's eyes were filled with worry. He looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "If you are able to meet Zijin outside in the future, please take care of her. Ask her to make a trip home so that I can be at ease." "If I am able to meet her, I will do my best." Du Xiaofu nodded. After which, Du Xiaofu explained his intentions. Firstly, it was to pay a visit to the Yi family. Secondly, it was to pay a visit to Senior Lightning Lion. After a while, Yi Baolin personally led Du Xiaofu to a familiar place. A simple and unadorned building appeared in front of Du Xiaofu's eyes. It looked like a pagoda, but it wasn't a pagoda. It gave off an ancient aura, as though it had existed for many years. In the simple stone room, Du Xiaofu saw a burly old man who looked to be in his 60s. He had a head full of purple hair and a face full of beard. His aura was imposing and ferocious. A formless wave of energy could make one's heart tremble. "Greetings to Senior Lion King. Congratulations on breaking through to the Beast King realm." Du Xiaofu smiled and bowed. Looking at the burly old man in front of him, it wasn't hard to feel that this was the Lightning Lion King who had broken through to the Beast King realm. His violent and ferocious aura also revealed a familiar domineering aura. "Breaking through to the Beast King realm is all thanks to you." The Lion King smiled. His voice was loud and clear, shaking the soul. He looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "How is your uncle? That 6-star talisman master is very strong. He should have a solution, right?" "Many thanks to Senior Lion King for your protection. Uncle should be fine." Du Xiaofu bowed. The main purpose of his visit to the Yi family was to thank the Lightning Lion King for protecting the Du family. "You are welcome." The Lightning Lion King smiled and said, "Those people were also from your Du family. It wasn't my place to interfere. That's why I arrived a little late. Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened." "It's all settled." Du Xiaofu smiled bitterly. After chatting with the Lion King for a while, Du Xiaofu found out that the Lightning Lion King wanted to go out and explore. He planned to leave the Stone City and pursue a higher breakthrough. The two chatted for almost an hour before Du Xiaofu left the Yi family. At this time, the moon was already high in the sky and the stars were twinkling. "You didn't see the eldest princess?" After returning to the Du family, Du Xiaofu went back to the courtyard but didn't see the eldest princess. He hesitated for a moment and looked around the Du family. The eldest princess followed him to the Stone City. If something happened, it would be troublesome. Du Xiaofu had no choice but to ask Du Xiaoqing, Du Xiaoyao, and Little Tiger. I don't know. Sister Shengnan isn't with us. Du Xiaoqing shook her head. She didn't see the eldest princess today. Du Xiaoyao seemed to have thought of something. She raised her head, and her pale golden eyes fluctuated. She said to Du Xiaofu, I remember now. She said she wanted to go to the Savage Beast Mountain Range. She said she wanted to go to a familiar place. Savage Beast Mountain Range. Du Xiaofu frowned slightly. The night was like sand floating in a muddy river. When it was still, it gradually settled down. The bright moon hung high in the sky. Birds flew back to the forest. The foothills were dark and the forest was faint. In the quiet forest, mottled moonlight shone through the dense forest. On a rock, a woman dressed in an orange-red outfit stood quietly. Her figure was slender and exquisite, and her eyes were deep and bright in the dark night. The woman stood there quietly for an unknown amount of time. She muttered to herself, Will he come? Will he be able to find me? Time passed slowly. The moon set in the west. The sky was dusty. Dawn was coming. The sky gradually became darker and darker. Even the moonlight couldn't dilute the darkness. SK. A figure landed on a rock in the forest. He was wearing a purple robe and carrying a broadsword on his back. His eyes were deep in the night and flickered with a faint golden light. It was Du Xiaofu. Swish. Suddenly, the space fluctuated. A figure turned into an orange afterimage in the night. Like lightning, it instantly pounced on Du Xiaofu. His pale golden eyes fluctuated. The energy around Du Xiaofu fluctuated. In an instant, a palm print accompanied by a faint golden splendor was launched. Bang! A muffled sound echoed. Du Xiaofu's figure didn't move at all. He was as steady as a rock. TSK, TSK, tisk, that orange figure swayed slightly. In an instant, it formed a graceful arc. The palm print was changing. A dazzling runic energy immediately enveloped Du Xiaofu. Extinguish! Du Xiaofu let out a soft shout. Faint golden light runes surged in the center of his palm, and an overbearing and ferocious aura suddenly appeared. He stretched out his right arm, like a rock spreading its wings, and directly slapped towards the dazzling light. Whoosh! Golden rays of light swept out and shattered the rune energy in midair. At the same time, Du Xiaofu opened his mouth and said softly, First Princess, that's enough. Do you still want to attack? Humph, you're not allowed to move. A delicate shout echoed. A beautiful figure appeared in front of Du Xiaofu. Her deep eyes were filled with ripples. Her slender body took the opportunity to appear in front of Du Xiaofu. She waved her delicate hand. Waves of fluctuation spread out. A palm print landed on Du Xiaofu's chest. Bang! After a muffled sound, Du Xiaofu's figure immediately trembled. His body swayed slightly. A terrifying energy swept out, causing the surrounding space to tremble. You idiot! Why didn't you dodge? The first Princess Chang Shengnan's beautiful face appeared in front of Du Xiaofu. Her eyes rippled as she pouted. Are you all right? Are you injured? I'm fine. You told me not to move. Du Xiaofu said. He looked at the woman before him and asked, Why have you come here? Seeing that Du Xiaofu was fine, the first princess let out a sigh of relief. She stood quietly beside Du Xiaofu. She looked at Du Xiaofu, then glared fiercely at Du Xiaofu. She said, Do you still remember where this is? Du Xiaofu looked around. In the darkness, he frowned slightly. Du Xiaofu naturally remembered this place. Back then, he had fought with Cheng Xingnan not far from here. In the end, he had even applied medicine to heal Cheng Xingnan. He said, I remember. I saved you here. But you also took the opportunity to plot against me? The first princess glared at Du Xiaofu. Her eyes were filled with anger. Perhaps she would attack at any time. I didn't. Du Xiaofu firmly denied. However, this denial was somewhat lacking in confidence. Cheng Shengnan glared at Du Xiaofu. She snorted and said, I don't care. You have. What do you want? Du Xiaofu looked helplessly at the woman before him and curled his lips. That's more like it. This is the attitude you should have. Cheng Shengnan looked at Du Xiaofu and suddenly smiled. Her red lips slightly parted as she said, Do you still remember that you said you wanted to snatch me back to be your maid? Du Du Xiaofu bitterly smiled and said, I think I did say that. Back then, you were the one who wanted to snatch my blood infant Ganoderma. Cheng Shengnan lifted her head and looked at Du Xiaofu. She said with a smile that was not a smile, It's good that you remember. I have decided. You have to be responsible for me. Responsible for what? Du Xiaofu furrowed his brows. I have been taken advantage of by you. What do you want to be responsible for? Cheng Shengnan glared at Du Xiaofu. Her graceful body was almost pressed tightly against Du Xiaofu when she was alive. She asked, Am I very ugly? Du Xiaofu took half a step back and looked seriously at the first princess. He shook his head and said, You are not ugly. In fact, you are very beautiful. Chapter 489. Cheng Shengnan continued to ask Du Xiaofu, Then how about I compete with Miss Li Shui from the Li family, Miss Gu Xinyan from the Gu family, Miss Xie Fei from the Xie family, and Miss Ouyang Shuang from the Ouyang family? Du Xiaofu frowned and looked at Cheng Shengnan in confusion. For a moment, he did not know how to answer. All right, I won't ask you this question. Look at your troubled face. Cheng Shengnan pursed her lips and smiled. Her tall and graceful figure stood in front of Du Xiaofu like a proud snow lotus. As her words fell, she raised her head slightly and took a deep breath, as if she had made an important decision in her heart. She lifted her delicate face and suddenly closed her eyes slightly. Her tender red lips were slightly pouted in front of Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu looked at the girl in front of him. Although it was dark, he could still clearly see the fine hair on her delicate face. A faint fragrance wafted from her body, especially her slightly pouted red lips, which were as red as cherries. Suddenly, for some unknown reason, Du Xiaofu bent down and leaned in. His breathing was a little hurried. Two thin lips immediately landed on the pouted red lips. This was a completely natural instinct. There was no need for guidance or comprehension. When those tender red lips entered his mouth, it was clear and cool. At this moment, the slightly closed eyelashes on the alluring face trembled slightly, as if she had suddenly become flustered. She immediately shut her eyes tightly when she felt the slight heat emitting from those two thin lips. At this moment, the surrounding night seemed to have frozen over, following which, the two people's lips slowly and completely pressed together. Du Xiaofu also closed his eyes. There was a fire burning in his heart. The tip of his tongue pried open those slightly open teeth. Feeling the fresh and moist tip of the tongue swimming in those slightly open lips, he could not help but lower his lips and gently wrap them around the moist and tender tip of the tongue. Du Xiaofu's hands also very naturally held the girl in his arms tightly. He was somewhat at a loss as his tongue moved along the curve of her body. On her back, her small waist that could not be held in one hand, all the way to that firm place. Eldest Princess Cheng Shengnan's eyes were tightly closed. Her entire body was trembling. She was a little flustered, but also intoxicated. Both of their breathing became more and more rapid. In the end, eldest Princess Cheng Shengnan broke free from Du Xiaofu's lips. Her delicate hand directly Chu Shengnan's mouth was stopped Du Xiaofu's mouth. Her delicate hands directly blocked Du Xiaofu's thin. Her cheeks were red, and her eyes rippled. Her eyes, she said, Sui, you, don't do's me's. Du Xiaofu was a little stunned. Then he looked at the girl in front of him. His first kiss was actually gone just like that. However, recalling the feeling just now, it seemed to be a long and sweet aftertaste. It was extremely good. Okay, let's go back. Otherwise, your second uncle and big sister will be worried. Cheng Shengnan gently held Du Xiaofu's arm. Her delicate face was full of a red blush. She looked a little shy and charming. Looking at her, Du Xiaofu's heart also palpitated. At this time, dawn had passed. The first rays of the morning sun lifted the faint but boundless curtain of night. Through the thin layer of clouds, dawn began to spread between the hazy heaven and earth, illuminating the vast forest and mountain range. When Du Xiaofu and the eldest princess returned to Stone City, with their current speed, it was already noon. The streets were bustling with people, and it was extraordinarily lively. All kinds of voices converged into a clamor that reverberated through the air. Is this the place where you grew up? On the street, the eldest princess Cheng Shengnan held Du Xiaofu's arm. She intimately leaned on Du Xiaofu's shoulder and looked around. Quickly look, it's the Vice City Lord. Greetings, Vice City Lord. On the street, some people noticed Du Xiaofu. Suddenly, there was a commotion. Everyone bowed and greeted him. Everyone, please don't be so polite. Du Xiaofu and the residents of Stone City nodded and signaled them to be excused. There was a smile on his face. This was the place where he grew up. Inside Stone City, his body and mind could naturally feel a special kind of closeness. Vice City Lord, this is personally made by my mother. Give it to Vice City Lord and this sister. In the street, there was a little girl who looked like she was 8 or 9 years old. She was holding 2 sticks of candies in her hands. She handed them to Du Xiaofu and the eldest princess Chengsheng. On her young face, her eyes were bright and full of innocence. Thank you. Du Xiaofu did not refuse. It was not good to refuse. 2 sticks of candies were not expensive. Thank you, little sister. The eldest princess Chengsheng bent down and smiled as she took the stick of candies from the little girl. Then, she smiled at Du Xiaofu and said, It seems like you, the Vice City Lord, are quite popular. Vice City Lord is the hero of our Stone City. Without him, there would be no Stone City today. Everyone in Stone City respects Vice City Lord very much. The little girl smiled and looked at Chengsheng. She blinked her innocent eyes and asked, Sister, you are so beautiful. May I ask if you are the Vice City Lord's wife? This, Chengsheng blushed. She slightly glanced at Du Xiaofu. Seeing Du Xiaofu's helpless expression, she slightly glared at Du Xiaofu. Then, with a smile, she said to the little girl, You have to ask your Vice City Lord to know because even I don't know. The little girl curiously turned her head and asked Du Xiaofu, Vice City Lord, is sister right? A smile appeared on Du Xiaofu's face. He patted the back of the little girl's head and said softly, I will seriously consider this problem. Before Du Xiaofu could finish his sentence, he felt a sharp pain in his arm. Looking to the side, he saw that the first princess's charming face, which had been flushed with shyness just now, was now filled with anger. It seems that she is the Vice City Lord's wife. They are really a talented man and a beautiful woman, a match made in heaven. The Vice City Lord's wife is so beautiful. In the surrounding streets, the residents of Stone City smiled and discussed. In this world, it was common for boys to get married and have children at the age of 15 or 16. The Vice City Lord was already 17 or 18 years old. Naturally, this was not a problem. When Du Xiaofu and the eldest princess returned to the Du family, it was already dusk. The amber sunset gradually receded from the horizon. Everyone in the Du family was anxious and was looking for the two of them everywhere. When many of the gossipy women in the Du family saw that Du Xiaofu and the eldest princess were still holding hands, they secretly smiled. Then, the news immediately spread like a bomb in the dark. At this time, Du Xiaofu, second uncle, big sister Du Xiaoman, and many Du family elders were discussing whether to put the sarcophagus back in the ancestral hall. After all, that was the place where the sarcophagus belonged. The sarcophagus had always been in the ancestral hall and had never been moved. The return of the ancestral sarcophagus to the ancestral hall was naturally a big matter for everyone in the Du family. Some elders suggested that the entire family must have a grand ceremony to show respect to the ancestors of the Du family. In the end, the elders of the Du family discussed and decided that the sooner the sarcophagus was put back in the ancestral hall, the better. It was set to be tomorrow. The head of the family had not woken up yet. The ceremony tomorrow would be led by Du Zhixiang, and all of the Du family disciples had to participate. The next morning, the Du family was very lively. All of the Du family disciples gathered at the ancestral hall in the back mountain. Du Xiaofu was now one of the most important figures in the Du family. Naturally, he could not be absent from such a ceremony. He had to stand in an important position. These complicated ceremonies gave Du Xiaofu a headache, but he had no choice. He had to participate. After paying respects to the ancestors and bringing out the ancestral sarcophagus, more than half a day had passed. Many elders of the Du family cried tears of joy when they saw the sarcophagus return to the ancestral hall. In the afternoon, a piece of good news came. The head of the Du family had finally woken up. When the news spread, The entire family was overjoyed. Many of them heaved a sigh of relief. In the room, Du Xiaofu and Du Zhixiong stood quietly by the bed. Du Xiaoman helped their father, Du Zhenwu, up. Although Du Zhenwu's complexion was pale and his aura was weak, he had already woken up. His aura was stable, and he should be able to recover after some time. "Uncle, I'm back." Looking at his uncle lying on the bed, a smile appeared on Du Xiaofu's face. The last stone in his heart had been lifted to the ground. "I already know about your achievements in the imperial capital. Tianwu Academy's first place in the Tianwu Martial Assembly, and you were conferred the title of Marquis. Your name has shaken the entire Stone Dragon Empire. Good lad, as expected of our Du family's second son. Good job." Looking at the purple-robed youth in front of him, Du Zhenwu's eyes were filled with excitement. His aura was surging, and he couldn't help coughing. However, there was a smile on his face. "Uncle, you should rest first." Du Xiaofu stepped forward and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine now." Du Zhenwu looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "An elder has already told me about the sarcophagus in the ancestral hall. Fortunately, the Du family has you. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to explain myself to the Du family's ancestors in the future. As a descendant of the Du family, this is what I should do. No one can take away what belongs to the Du family." Du Xiaofu's eyes were firm, and there was a smile on his face. Looking at Du Xiaofu, Du Zhenwu's eyes flickered and he said, "I've also heard about the Du family's matter. No matter what, our Stone City's Du family and the Du family's Du family are of the same origin. Let's end it here." "I understand. Uncle, you can rest at ease and recuperate. Leave the matters outside to us." Du Xiaofu nodded. "With you here, of course I can rest assured." Du Zhenwu smiled. Uncle Du Zhenwu had just woken up, and it wasn't appropriate to disturb him. Soon after, Du Xiaofu took out many medicinal pellets, martial skills, and other cultivation resources from his spatial pouch and handed them to his two uncles. He planned to head to the chaotic demon city. Chapter 490. You've just returned, and you're leaving already? Hearing this, Du Zhixiong looked surprised, his gaze reluctant as he tried to persuade Du Xiaofu to stay. "You brat, you've just returned home. Why don't you stay for a few more days? The juniors in the family have been telling the elders that they hope you can take some time to guide them, but they don't dare to tell you. Why don't you stay for a few more days and guide them as well?" Du Xiaofu was worried about the Tianxia society in chaotic demon city and could not let go. As for guiding the juniors, he was still considered the youngest among his peers, and most of them were older than him. Moreover, he really did not know how to guide them. "Xiaofu, eldest uncle knows that you are no longer the same as before and have your own matters to attend to. How about this? Stay for one more day and take some time to guide your brothers and sisters. See if there are any good seedlings so that they can be nurtured as early as possible, so that you won't tire yourself out supporting the Du family alone in the future. Also, let those juniors be happy and boost the morale of our Du family," Du Zhenwu said. He said to Du Xiaofu, "All right." Since eldest uncle had already spoken, and he would only stay for one more day, Du Xiaofu could only nod, unable to refuse. Night after night, the news that Du Xiaofu was going to guide the Du family juniors spread. The entire Du family juniors were in an uproar, all of them rubbing their fists and palms, eager to try, hoping to be able to receive guidance tomorrow. The next morning, all the Du family juniors had already gathered at the Du family drill ground. Even the elders, protectors, and elders of the Du family had gathered there out of curiosity. Du Hao, Du Gue, Du Chong, Du Yu, Du Shui, and the other elites of the younger generation were naturally at the forefront. It's said that Big Brother Xiaofu can already defeat the legendary Martial King experts. If we can receive guidance this time, we will definitely improve greatly. Big Brother Xiaofu is our Du family's genius, our Du family's pride. I hope I can receive Big Brother Xiaofu's guidance today." The young men and women were discussing excitedly in low voices. Their hearts were filled with excitement and anticipation. A moment later, Du Xiaofu, First Princess, Cheng Xingnan, Du Xiaoyao, Little Tiger, Du Xiaoqing, and Du Xiaoman all came together. The younger generation on the drill ground was in an uproar. This made Du Xiaofu feel rather helpless. However, Guiding the younger generation of the Du family and increasing the strength of the Du family was something that Du Xiaofu took very seriously. Following which, Du Xiaofu selected Du Hao, Du Yu, Du Shui, Du Gue, and the other youths with the most potential, and gave them some guidance in terms of martial skills and comprehension. Du Xiaofu let everyone use their strongest martial skill once, and then Du Xiaofu used a mysterious technique to slightly comprehend and modify it. Immediately, the power of those martial skills increased by a large margin. This caused the Du family disciples to be deeply shocked. The Du family elders and elders were also extremely shocked. In the hands of Du Xiaofu, a set of martial skills could be increased by a large margin in the blink of an eye. How shocking was this? Especially for the wave motion fist and stormy wave palm, Du Xiaofu did not hold back as he imparted the perfected stormy wave palm and wave motion fist to the Du family disciples. One by one, the Du family disciples diligently comprehended. At this moment, the elders of the Du family completely disregarded their dignity and status, and all of them were fully focused on observing with the younger generation. Du Xiaofu did not think that he could be a teacher, but he did not know that his explanation and guidance would be of great use to the Du family disciples. There were also some elders who could not help but come forward to ask some questions about cultivation, afraid that they would miss this rare opportunity. For these elders and elders, Du Xiaofu explained one by one. In the end, he even took out a lot of elixirs and gave them to the elders of the Du family, hoping that these elders would be able to make some breakthroughs in their lifetime. Not to mention how much these elders and elders could improve their cultivation, extending their lifespan was also a good thing. Every time their cultivation increased, the vitality in their body would erupt, and their lifespan would increase. On the drill ground, it was extraordinarily lively. A large group of Du family disciples tightly surrounded Du Xiaofu. This guy, he actually became a teacher. On the drill ground, eldest Princess Cheng Shengnan looked at the purple-robed youth who was surrounded by the crowd. Her beautiful face was like a flower, and her butterfly-like eyebrows were smiling. Her eyes rippled, and it was incomparably moving. Big Brother has always been the best. Du Xiaoqing had always had incomparable confidence in her brother. She had never doubted him. Du Xiaoyao stood on Du Xiaoqing's shoulder and did not say anything. There were no elixirs in the vicinity, nor were there any totem or practitioner weapons to eat. She seemed to be extremely helpless. In the crowd, Du Xiaoman was whispering something in the ears of many of the Du family's younger generation. Soon after, many of the Du family's younger generation, led by Du Shui, immediately gathered around eldest Princess Cheng Shengnan. Eldest Princess, I heard that you are one of the strongest young people in the entire empire. Even Brother Xiaofu is not much stronger than you. Can you give us some guidance? I heard that eldest Princess came from a large sect. Eldest Princess, please give us some guidance. The Du family disciples surrounded eldest Princess Cheng Shengnan, hoping to receive some guidance. Actually, I don't know how to give you guidance. How about this? I will give it a try. Maybe I can share my cultivation experience with you. Eldest Princess Cheng Shengnan's delicate face was crimson red. She seemed to be a little embarrassed. However, it did not take long for her to blend in with the Du family disciples. In the end, she generously took out many martial skills and elixirs and gave them to some of the extraordinary disciples. Du Shui's performance was the most extraordinary. She even received a high-grade totem from Cheng Shengnan. The value of the totem was astonishing, which made Du Shui very happy. The surrounding disciples of the same generation were extremely envious. However, when they thought about how they also received martial skills and elixirs, they were already very satisfied. Unknowingly, a day had passed in the drill ground. All of the Du family disciples felt that there was not enough time. For Du Xiaofu and eldest Princess Cheng Shengnan, although this was not a physical task, it was still very tiring. Although Du Xiaofu was tired, he was extremely happy when he thought about how he could let the Du family disciples obtain some benefits and make progress. This would strengthen the Du family branch in the future. As night fell, Du Xiaofu and eldest Princess Cheng Shengnan left the drill ground under the reluctance of the Du family disciples. The bright moon hung in the sky. In the courtyard, Du Xiaofu was lying on the chair of his drunkard father. Looking at the bright moon in the sky, He wondered if his drunkard father was thinking about his mother and sister when he looked at the bright moon in the sky. But now, he was thinking about the three of them. Mother, sister, I will definitely become an expert as soon as possible. At that time, I will definitely find you. Du Xiaofu murmured softly. In his hand, he held a gourd of wine and drank a mouthful of strong wine. The wine was left behind by his drunkard father. The gourd was the same gourd that his drunkard father had used for more than 10 years. I heard that you are going to the dark forest tomorrow? Eldest Princess Changshengnan came over in small steps. She gently sat down beside Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu came back to his senses. Looking at the beautiful woman beside him, he asked, "Are you sure you want to go? The dark forest is very chaotic. The place I am going to is even more chaotic. I have nothing to do anyway, so I want to go and take a look." "Why, don't you want me to go with you?" Eldest Princess pursed her lips and smiled. "Of course not." Du Xiaofu immediately shook his head. "I am just afraid that you will be in danger. With you, I am not afraid of danger. Just don't bully me." Looking at the purple-robed man in front of her, the eldest princess gently leaned on his shoulder that was not too wide but as hard as iron. Looking at the bright moon in the sky, she said softly, "I want to spend more time with you. After I return to the Divine Light Court, I am afraid that I will not be able to come back in a short period of time. At that time, I will not be able to see you even if I want to." Hearing this, Du Xiaofu once again took a sip of wine, and then put one arm around the woman leaning on his shoulder. He did not say anything, and only quietly looked at the bright moon in the sky. In the sky, there was a night cloud drifting by. The bright moon immediately jumped into the cloud, as if it did not want to disturb the two people leaning against each other in the courtyard. The night passed. The night was coming to an end, and people were looking forward to the dawn. Dawn caught up with the night. A gray ray of light passed through the hazy brown sky, and the sky slowly brightened. Early in the morning, outside the Du family, the little tiger flapped its wings and hovered at a low altitude. Several figures leaped onto its back. Roar! The tiger roar resounded. The giant black tiger flapped its wings and flew away, disappearing in midair like lightning. Outside the Du family, many disciples of the Du family waved their hands, unwilling to leave. They wished they could follow. "We must work hard to cultivate. When we are as strong as Brother Yunlong and Sister Xiaoman, we will be able to follow Brother Xiaofu to travel the world and protect our Du family." Looking at the purple-robed youth disappearing into the sky, the eyes of many of the younger generation of the Du family trembled. "That is the pride of our Du family. The Du family has already begun to rise." The great elder's old face was filled with radiance. "The heavens bless our Du family. The ancestors of the Du family bless us." Many of the elders of the Du family were excited, and their eyes were shining. Du Zhixiong retracted his gaze from the distance, then turned around and said to the disciples of the Du family, "Everyone, go back. Juniors, cultivate well. Don't be lazy." Today's update has arrived. This is also a new volume of content. The new volume, Moving Unhindered, will begin the official rise of our pig trotters. The main content of this volume revolves around the dark forest and some hidden forces. It will also pave the way for us to go to the middle state. It can be considered as the beginning of the passionate plot of this book. The chapters in these few days are too long, and it is also difficult to write. Although the updates have been maintained, the update time is very slow. Please forgive us, brothers and sisters. I apologize to everyone. Chapter 491. Chaos Demon City was the most chaotic place in the Dark Forest. It was rumored that Chaos Demon City was even more chaotic than Dark City. However, in this half a year, as the World Society gained a foothold in Chaos Demon City, the original chaos gradually ended. The small and medium-sized factions in Chaos Demon City had all been subdued by the World Society in this half a year. As for the remaining factions, as long as they were disloyal, they were basically struggling at death's door. They could no longer contend with the World Society. It could be said that the biggest overlord in Chaos Demon City was the World Society that had appeared out of nowhere. With the Eagle King's Gong Saber and the Medicine King Yi Wuming holding the fort, the World Society was enough to contend with the One Pavilion, One Castle, and 2 sects. However, the world society was also in a lot of trouble now. The demonic beasts in the Chaos Demon City were enough to make the 1 pavilion, 1 fort, and 2 sects, the 4 great powers, absolutely fearful. And in the Chaos Demon City where these demonic beasts were entrenched, their first target was naturally the world society. Chaos Demon City. Although it was chaotic, in an area dominated by humans, the buildings were continuous and majestic, appearing extremely prosperous. In this half a year, although the world society had wiped out many small and medium-sized factions, it had also made Chaos Demon City even more prosperous. It was said that after the world society gained control of Chaos Demon City, the city became much more stable. In addition, with the Medicine King guarding the city, the world society opened many businesses. It was said that there were even elixirs personally refined by the Medicine King for sale from time to time. This caused everyone to rush into Chaos Demon City like a flock of ducks. The more prosperous Chaos Demon City became, the more lively it became. As time passed, the degree of prosperity even caught up to Dark City. However, it would probably be difficult to compare to Dark City's prosperity in a short period of time. Dusk. The sunset in the west. The amber sunset gradually retreated from the horizon. The dense forest quietly descended in the dusk. The first few stars appeared in the vast sky, and the vast mountain range was completely shrouded in them. In Chaos Demon City, the sunset covered the sky. In the depths of the surrounding mountain range, there would occasionally be a few low and shocking demonic beast roars. Chaos Demon City's area was very large. The city even included a large stretch of mountain range, the mountain peaks stretching into the clouds. The vast Chaos Demon City was actually divided into 2 large areas. The largest area was occupied by the demonic beast forces. The human race could only occupy a relatively small area, but it was still several times larger than the small cities in the outside world. Originally, in Chaos Demon City, it was still possible to see some scenes of humans and beasts coexisting peacefully. The intelligence of some demonic beasts was not below that of humans. Those with high bloodlines among the demonic beasts had intelligence comparable to the top humans. Among the human spirit symbol masters, some of the special elixirs refined by the medicine symbol masters were also of great use to the demonic beasts. The demonic beasts could also use totem weapons and symbol weapons. Some of the territories controlled by the demonic beasts often had a lot of spiritual herbs, heavenly treasures, and so on, which were also things that humans needed. Thus, everyone took what they needed. It wasn't strange to see humans and beasts coexisting in chaotic Demon City. However, with the recent rise of the World Gathering and the rumor that the king of the demonic beasts, the silver-winged demonic condor, had broken through to the Beast King realm, the Nirvana realm, caused the human race and the demonic beasts in Chaos Demon City to instantly be at loggerheads. The demonic beast forces would definitely not allow the human race to dominate Chaos Demon City. Otherwise, the 1 pavilion, 1 castle, and 2 sects would have intervened long ago. Recently, Chaos Demon City was extremely chaotic. Once evening came, many demonic beast forces could be seen to be ready to make a move. They would attack the human forces that were alone. Many people had already suffered misfortune. This also caused the relationship between the demonic beasts and the human race to become even more tense. Outside Chaos Demon City, on the spacious square, it was still dusk. The usually bustling crowd was now completely empty. Everyone returned to the huge Chaos Demon City early in the morning to guard against the attacks of the demonic beasts. Therefore, once evening came, the human race's city gates would be tightly shut to defend against the attacks of the demonic beasts. All the humans gathered in the city. There were also powerful cultivators, so the demonic beasts did not dare to take the risk to attack the city. Dusk came, and the entire Chaos Demon City was enveloped by the red setting sun. Outside Chaos Demon City, a man and 2 women slowly walked over. The afterglow of the setting sun flashed past their bodies. The man and the 2 women were both extremely young. The 2 women were breathtaking. One of them was a woman in a tight dress who was graceful and provocative. She had a noble temperament. The other was a young lady in a long green dress. She was elegant and pure. Her big eyes were like stars twinkling. The young man looked to be around 17 or 18 years old, but he was extremely eye-catching. He had a resolute and determined face, and his eyes were bright and clear. He carried something that looked like a purple broadsword on his back, and there was a little golden macaque standing on his shoulder. There was also a black kitten following behind him. With his appearance, it was impossible not to be eye-catching. This group of three was none other than Du Xiaofu, Du Xiaoqing, First Princess Cheng Xingnan, Du Xiaoao, and Little Tiger. They had hurried over from the Stone City. This Chaos Demon City is really strange. Why are the city gates closed so early? First Princess Cheng Xingnan looked at the tightly shut city gates in the middle of the towering city walls in front of her. There was a puzzled look in her eyes. She had naturally heard about the chaos in the Dark Forest and the chaos in Chaos Demon City. However, the current situation seemed to be different from the rumors. Du Xiaofu frowned. He was also very puzzled. Although he had never been to Chaos Demon City, it was not difficult to feel that something was not right from the tense and strange atmosphere in the surroundings. I didn't expect there to be a seal array on the city walls. It should be a 5-star seal array. Du Xiaoyao stood on Du Xiaofu's shoulder and looked at the city walls. As long as there was a seal array's aura, it naturally could not escape his detection. Please open the city gates. We want to enter the city. Under the city gates, Du Xiaofu raised his head and looked at the city walls. There were many figures flashing. Many people were standing on the city walls. The city gates are already closed. It's too late to enter the city. Come early tomorrow. I hope you can still survive tonight. On the city walls, a bald man in tight clothes looked down at Du Xiaofu's group and said loudly, I advise you to hide as soon as possible. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't live past tonight. Why can't we open the city gates? Du Xiaofu frowned and raised his head to ask the bald man. There are rules. In order to prevent demonic beasts from invading, seal arrays have already been set up on the city walls. Could it be that we can only close the seal array for you? What if the demonic beasts invade? The bald man looked at Du Xiaofu's group and shouted, You should quickly find a place to hide. Those two girls are quite pretty. It would be a pity if they were eaten alive by those demonic beasts. Why don't you let me bring those two girls in? It would be a pity if they were eaten alive by the demonic beasts. I'm afraid that you won't be able to find such trash in the entire Dark Forest. What a pity. On the city wall, a lot of boorish laughter could be heard. In the Dark Forest, this was not strange. However, when the first Princess Cheng Xingnan heard these rude words, she felt a little uncomfortable. She frowned slightly and her gaze turned cold. Big brother, there are a lot of demonic beasts coming. Du Xiaoqing was also unhappy with the rude words. She snorted and was about to do something when her innocent eyes suddenly turned to look at the vast mountain range behind her. Walala! Not long after Du Xiaoqing finished speaking, in the distant sky behind them, a vast sea of trees rose and fell. The forest swayed, and the ground trembled. Not good. Those demonic beasts are here again. Could it be that they want to attack the city? Quick, inform the experts. Those demonic beasts are here again, and they're causing quite a commotion. Now, those three youngsters won't be able to escape. Those evil beasts are too hateful. On the city wall, when they saw the mountains in front of them shaking and the vast sea of trees rising and falling, their gazes turned solemn. Roar, roar, ao, ao. In a short period of time, the sea of trees was filled with the roars of beasts. A large number of ferocious beasts flapped their wings and flew out. A violent wind swept across the sky, sweeping up countless stones and dust. Some of the ferocious beasts at the front had sharp claws that could pierce through mountains and split rocks. On the ground, a terrifying group of beasts swept out, almost forming a beast tide. The ferocious beasts at the front were as large as courtyards. They had frightening fangs and their eyes were emitting various runes. Wherever they passed, the earth shook and the mountains shook, sending gravel flying. The terrifying beast tide suddenly surged out, sweeping over in an instant. There were no less than a few thousand of them. This was definitely a huge and terrifying lineup. It was enough to make one's heart tremble. The numerous gazes on the city wall saw the densely packed group of demonic beasts rushing over. Some of them were even taller than the city wall. In the sky, there were also terrifying, ferocious beasts that covered the sky like dark clouds. It made one's hair stand on end. If such a large group of demonic beasts were to rush into the city, it would definitely be a terrifying disaster. Roar, roar. The demonic beasts roared. The sound waves were like thunder. For a moment, the aura was terrifying. The cries of the beasts rose and fell one after another. It seemed that the number of demonic beasts was increasing, forming a larger group of demonic beasts. However, this large group of demonic beasts seemed to be afraid of the humans gathered in the city. After rushing over, they gathered outside the city wall and did not dare to attack the city. However, there were also demonic beasts that immediately fixed their gazes on Du Xiaofu, Du Xiaoqing, and the eldest princess, Cheng Sheng'an. Numerous ferocious beasts' eyes shot out murderous glints, locking onto Du Xiaofu and the rest. Chapter 492. Woo woo. In the air, a large number of ferocious birds flapped their wings, sharp beaks and sharp claws. Runes surged, sweeping up a storm that covered the sky and covered the earth. Sharp and fierce gazes were also fixed on Du Xiaofu and the other two. Oh no, those three have already been targeted. They're dead for sure. On the city gate tower, the crowd looked at the three people who were gradually surrounded by the horde of monstrous beasts. They could not help but feel a chill run down their spines. Those three young people were already dead for sure. The horde of monstrous beasts surrounded Du Xiaofu and the others. On the ground, there were terrifying monstrous beasts, and in the air, there were ferocious birds. However, at this moment, for some unknown reason, each of the terrifying monstrous beasts was hesitating, as if they had sensed some aura. They did not dare to approach, and their fierce gazes were filled with doubt and hesitation. What should we do? First Princess Cheng Sheng'an asked Du Xiaofu, her eyes looking around. At this moment, being surrounded by so many monstrous beasts, although her strength was probably below the martial king realm, it would not be easy for them to do anything to her. However, at this moment, her beautiful face still paled a little. On the other hand, Du Xiaoqing stood quietly, facing the horde of monstrous beasts around her. She did not have any intention of paying attention to them at all. Du Xiaoyao was not nervous at all. Her pale golden spirit eyes scanned the surroundings indifferently, showing no intention of placing the monstrous beasts in her eyes at all. Even if she could not do anything to these monstrous beasts, if she wanted to leave, it would be easy. The little tiger's black cat-like body stood in front of Du Xiaofu as if it was about to pounce. Light flashed in its eyes, and the formless aura made the surrounding monstrous beasts not dare to approach. Du Xiaofu looked at the horde of monstrous beasts around them. Among the thousands of monstrous beasts, most of them were at the pulsating realm. There were also a few Xiantian realm beasts at the back, and there were already a lot fewer pulsating spirit realm beasts. As for the Beast Lord realm beasts, there were even fewer. Including the ferocious birds in the air, there were only a total of 12 Beast Lord realm beasts. Ao. In front of Du Xiaofu's group, thousands of demonic beasts and ferocious birds did not dare to approach. However, they completely surrounded Du Xiaofu's group, and all sorts of deafening roars and roars rang out. Beast Lord realm Nirvana realm. Du Xiaofu's gaze landed on a giant bear with red scales that was leading the pack, as well as a fierce, scaled vulture that was circling in midair. These two scaled beasts were at the Nirvana realm of the Beast Lord realm, and they were also the two strongest beasts in the pack. Roar. As Du Xiaofu sized them up, the gigantic scaled bear and the scaled vulture appeared in front of Du Xiaofu and the other two. They were extremely ferocious and ferocious. They were also the kings of the demonic beasts. Brother, should we clean them up? Du Xiaoqing glanced around indifferently. Facing this pack of demonic beasts, she did not even give them a second glance. Du Xiaofu's brows twitched and he frowned. He seemed to have made some arrangements and said to Du Xiaoqing, "No need. Don't expose your strength. Without my permission, you are not allowed to make a move." All right. Du Xiaoqing pouted and seemed to be a little disappointed. She immediately stood at the side lazily. Puny humans, die. The giant scaled bear looked at Du Xiaofu's group and roared in human language. Its roar reverberated through the sky. However, at this moment, its ferocious eyes seemed to have sensed an aura that made it fearful. It secretly sized up the surroundings as if it was searching for something. Those 3 young people, 2 young ladies and 1 young man, are dead meat. On the city tower, everyone saw that Du Xiaofu's group was surrounded by demonic beasts. Under the deafening roar, they were powerless. Du Xiaofu looked at the giant scaled bear. It was a raging flame mountain-splitting bear with an extremely high bloodline. The giant scaled vulture beside it was called the iron shell demonic vulture. It was also an extremely terrifying demonic beast. Evil creatures, leave quickly. It's still not too late. Otherwise, I will barbecue you. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu looked at the leading raging flames mountain-splitting bear and the iron-armored demonic vulture and shouted loudly. His voice was accompanied by profound energy as it spread out, and it was not the slightest bit inferior to the raging flames mountain-splitting bear's voice. That young man can't be scared silly, right? He actually dares to threaten the iron shell demonic vulture and the raging flame mountain-splitting bear. Those are the most violent demonic beasts around the blue flame red leopard. He must be scared silly. That kid actually wants to barbecue the iron shell demonic vulture and the raging flame mountain-splitting bear. He is definitely courting death. That young man is definitely unlucky. That raging flame mountain-splitting bear will definitely not let them off easily. Hearing that the purple-robed young man who was surrounded by the demonic beasts was still so arrogant, everyone on the city tower was astonished. All right, it's Commander Hua. And Lord Yi, he's here too. Greetings, Commander Hua. Greetings, Lord Yi. It was also at this time that a commotion came from the city wall. Many experts directly jumped onto the city wall from the city. In the lead was a man who looked to be in his 40s and was 7 feet tall. He had a skinny body and wore a tight short shirt. His skinny body was filled with muscles and was filled with power. He was one of the commanders of the World Society, Hua Fankong. What's going on? Why are there so many demonic beasts? Hua Fankong appeared on the city wall and looked at the terrifying demonic beasts outside the city wall. He sucked in a breath of cold air. Commander Hua, it's the raging flame mountain-splitting bear and the iron-armored demonic vulture. I guess they were sent by the blue flame red leopard to scout out our situation. Those demonic beasts have been getting more and more rampant recently. I'm afraid they won't be able to hold themselves back and will attack the city soon. On the city tower, the bald man who was talking to Du Xiaofu said respectfully to Hua Fankong. Beside Hua Fankong, there was a slender young man in a black robe. His eyes were fixed on the demonic beasts outside the city wall. His hair was as black as ink and his eyes were sharp. His thin lips were slightly arrogant, and he had an indifferent temperament that made people stay away. Why are there still people below? Suddenly, the black-robed young man looked at the demonic beasts and his sharp eyes changed slightly. Lord Yi, it's 2 ladies and a man. We have already closed the city gate and activated the charm array. The 3 of them just arrived and were surrounded by the demonic beasts not long after. The bald man replied respectfully. Facing the black-robed young man, there was an additional sense of reverence in his respect compared to when he faced Commander Hua. That was Lord Yi Piaoling, a killer general of the World Society who struck cleanly and made people tremble in fear. Killer God Yi Piaoling was a nickname given to Yi Piaoling by the people in the Chaos Demon City. In the past half a year, everyone in the Chaos Demon City knew that the expansion of the World Society was all led by Yi Piaoling. The leaders of the small and medium forces in the Chaos Demon City had no other choice but to surrender or be killed. Puny human, you've angered me. Today, this beast marquis will tear you apart alive, puny human brat. There was no delay. As Du Xiaofu's roar rang out, the blazing mountain-splitting bear's crimson scales suddenly burst into flames, with faint runes flickering on them. Roar! The raging flame mountain-splitting bear's huge body pounced out like a gust of wind. It swooped down and opened its bloody mouth, tearing at Du Xiaofu, Du Xiaoqing, and First Princess Cheng Shengnan and Du Xiaoyao. It wanted to swallow everyone in one bite. Sigh, they are dead. On the city tower, many people shook their heads. With the raging flame mountain-splitting bear attacking, Those young people were definitely dead. Bang! However, just when everyone thought that those young people were doomed, a low, muffled sound suddenly rang out. Rumble. Then, under the dumbfounded gazes of the people on the city tower, they saw the raging flame mountain splitting bare at the Beast Lord realm at the Nirvana realm stumble back. It took a few steps, causing the ground to shake and the ground to crack. A large energy storm swept out, causing the demonic beasts in the surroundings to sway. Roar. In an instant, a large number of violent demonic beasts swept out, their roars like thunder. A purple-robed figure leaped into the sky. He stepped on the void and hovered in midair. His body was wrapped in a faint golden light, and his aura surged, causing the demonic beasts in the surroundings to tremble violently. They could not help but feel fear and retreat. As the purple-robed figure hovered in midair, Hua Fankong, who was on the city tower, was stunned. Then, his expression changed drastically. He's finally back. On the city wall, Yi Piaoling looked at the purple-robed figure hovering in midair. His indifferent aura fluctuated, and a faint smile appeared in his cold and sharp eyes. Why do you have the aura of demonic beasts? Are you a human or a demonic beast? The raging flame mountain splitting bare was pushed back, and it looked at Du Xiaofu in astonishment. The terrifying and domineering power that pushed it back made it feel like it was facing a supreme demonic beast. The aura made it tremble. At this moment, the aura of the purple-robed young man clearly had the aura of a demonic beast. Mountain-splitting bear, this human brat's aura is different, but he's definitely not from our race. He must have obtained some benefits left behind by a demonic beast expert. I feel that if I devour this brat, I will definitely gain a lot of benefits. The iron-shelled demonic vulture let out a sharp screech in midair as it stared at Du Xiaofu, who was floating in midair. Although the domineering and sharp aura that spread out from the purple-robed young man caused its heart to tremble for no reason, at the same time, it also allowed it to feel that if it was able to devour the purple-robed young man, it would definitely be able to obtain great benefits. This feeling came from its blood and soul, and it was definitely not wrong. Damn you, human! The raging flame mountain splitting bear roared. As a demonic beast, it was naturally disgusted by the fact that humans sought benefits from demonic beasts. One must know that when humans sought benefits from demonic beasts, most of the time, the demonic beast's life would be the price. Any demonic beast race would be extremely disgusted and displeased by this aspect of humans. Let's join forces and kill this brat first, the iron-shelled demonic vulture said to the raging flame mountain splitting bear. Its sharp and intimidating eyes were fixed on Du Xiaofu. There was fear, passion, and temptation in its eyes. Evil beast. Du Xiaofu looked at the raging flame mountain splitting bear and the iron-shelled demonic vulture who were planning to join forces. The corners of his mouth lifted slightly, and his face darkened. His eyes suddenly became sharper. Chapter 493. Screech. The iron-armored demonic vulture flapped its wings in midair, as if dark clouds had covered the sky. Wild gales swept out, sweeping up countless rocks below. The forest in the distance rose and fell, as a ferocious aura swept across the sky. It swooped down, directly pouncing towards Du Xiaofu. Chi 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 chi. The iron-armored demonic vulture's sharp claws were like hooks, erupting with runes. It immediately grabbed at Du Xiaofu, wanting to tear Du Xiaofu into pieces. Faced with the iron-armored demonic vulture's huge body swooping down, the wild gales of energy swept downwards. Du Xiaofu was not flustered. He waved his hand, and a fist immediately rumbled out. Golden light erupted from his fist. Although it seemed slow, it was actually as powerful as thunder. Like an impact cannon, it suddenly collided with the iron-armored demonic vulture's claw. Bang! A low and deep energy muffled sound immediately resounded across the vast sky, as a large amount of energy swept out together with the symbol. After which, under the numerous shocked gazes on the city tower, one could only see that the enormous iron-armored demonic vulture was actually directly pushed back. Roar! At the same time, the huge raging flames mountain splitting bear also pounced towards Du Xiaofu. Its terrifying bare claws wanted to smash Du Xiaofu into meat paste. Walala, however, at the same time. The profound qi under Du Xiaofu's feet surged. His arms opened slightly, like a rock spreading its wings, and instantly disappeared from the raging flames mountain-splitting bear's attack range. His figure drifted like a god, instantly descending towards the iron-armored demonic vulture that was staggering backwards. The iron-armored demonic vulture's sharp eyes changed color. It flapped its wings and erupted with rune energy, intending to block and suppress Du Xiaofu, not allowing him to approach and descend. Rock descends to the 9 heavens. A domineering and terrifying aura suddenly erupted from Du Xiaofu's body like a flash flood. Golden light rushed towards the sky. The golden runes were dazzling. Du Xiaofu's body was like a rising sun, as if a golden-winged rock had spread its wings. At this moment, it was as if Du Xiaofu's body had transformed into a golden-winged rock. Boom! An overbearing and fierce, imposing aura suddenly swept out from Du Xiaofu's body as the pair of talisman markings on his back flapped, causing flowing lights to overflow and suffuse the air. He was like a rock that flapped its wings and soared through the 9 heavens. Ao ao ao, boo-hoo. At this moment, the surrounding beasts roared endlessly, and the thousands of demonic beasts were all terrified. Under the pressure of the great golden-winged rock, there was no way to resist at all. Large numbers of demon beasts prostrated themselves on the ground. Halala! Du Xiaofu's body descended, carrying the domineering will of the Golden Rock clan. It was as if a real golden rock had descended, destroying the runes that the iron-armored demonic vulture had unleashed. Golden light burst out. The golden rune wings on Du Xiaofu's back were much smaller than the huge wings of the iron-armored demonic vulture, but at this moment, it was as if a golden sun had descended, illuminating this part of the world at dusk. The golden light turned into a rising ocean. Along with a terrifying amount of energy, it pressed down on the back of the armored vulture. Boom! The space trembled, and energy surged. The iron-armored demonic vulture's body was immediately pressed down by Du Xiaofu and fell straight down from the sky. GG! The iron-armored demonic vulture screeched incessantly and flapped its wings. In an instant, energy covered the sky and covered the earth. The wind blew, and a terrifying aura spread out, tearing the ground below. However, at this moment, under the pressure of Du Xiaofu's great golden-winged rock's will, the iron-armored demonic vulture could no longer resist. It was directly pressed down to the ground while screeching. Boom, boom, boom. The iron-armored demonic vulture fell, and the ground shook violently. Large pieces of rock were swept away, and the shocking aura was like a landslide. Roar! Under the terrifying pressure, the fiery mountain-splitting bear was still able to resist. However, at this moment, it was furious. Its entire body was wrapped in flames, and the huge bear's body was like a giant. Its ferocious aura soared to the sky, and the bear's paw was like a red sun that was enlarging. Along with the scorching aura, it leaned over the iron-armored demonic vulture and immediately attacked Du Xiaofu. It wanted to kill this strange human youth with one punch. Skyshaker wings. Stepping on the iron-armored demonic vulture, Du Xiaofu waved his hand. A golden talisman rune surged, and like a golden rock flapping its wings, a domineering and fierce aura erupted like a volcano, crushing and destroying everything. Boom! Two terrifying forces suddenly collided violently. Both of them erupted with resplendent runic brilliance. It was as if two stars had collided, illuminating the square outside Chaos Demon City under the glow of the setting sun. It was especially dazzling. Ding ding. At this moment, under the shocked gazes of the many people on the city wall, the huge fiery mountain-splitting bear's body was once again shaken. The flames on its body were much weaker, and its footsteps were staggering. Everywhere it passed, the ground trembled. That young man is too powerful. Where did he come from? What a powerful young man. That figure seems familiar. On the city tower, many people watched this scene. All of them were frightened, and their eyes trembled with shock. Gee! The iron-armored demonic vulture roared and hissed. Runes flashed, and it was still struggling with all its might, wanting to break free from Du Xiaofu's suppression. Its wings flapped on the ground, sweeping out two huge, deep pits, and gravel swept out like a storm. "I told you to leave, but you just had to provoke me," Du Xiaofu snorted. Under the gazes of the crowd, he bent down and directly grabbed the left wing of the iron-armored demonic vulture with both hands and viciously pulled. Crack, crack, crack. Scales broke, bones shattered, and beast blood spilled. Under the trembling gazes of the crowd, the huge left wing of the iron-armored demonic vulture was actually torn apart. "Oh my God!" On the city wall, shocked cries continuously sounded. The powerful wing of the iron-armored demonic vulture was actually torn apart by the purple-robed youth. This visual impact made one's hair stand on end. Just how fierce and shocking was that purple-robed youth? Gee! The iron-armored demonic vulture let out a mournful cry, and its entire body trembled. The intense pain reached its heart, and its fierce eyes were now filled with fear. After its huge body was forced back, the raging flame mountain splitting bear's eyes were now filled with fear. Its entire body trembled, and how could it dare to resist? It immediately turned around and tried to escape. "Evil creature, where do you think you're going?" Du Xiaofu softly shouted. The rune wings on his back were like a rock spreading its wings. Golden light erupted, and he turned around and soared into the sky. His speed was many times faster than the raging flame mountain splitting bear, and he appeared behind it in an instant. As his figure appeared, Du Xiaofu waved his hand. The faint roar of a dragon could be heard from his palm, and a profound cloud scarlet dragon's shadow condensed. Ao! Light overflowed in all directions, and the runes were dazzling. The profound cloud scarlet dragon's shadow swept out, causing the surrounding air to surge like waves. Ripples spread out, and its aura was like the king of all beasts. With an astonishing might, it directly collided with the raging flame mountain splitting bear. Roar! Unable to escape, the raging flame mountain splitting bear seemed to be enraged. The scarlet scales all over its body emitted raging flames, and its aura suppressed the vast sky, shaking one's soul. Countless runes were activated, and it fiercely met the profound cloud scarlet dragon's shadow. But under the might of the profound cloud scarlet dragon's shadow, a look of dread appeared in the raging flame mountain splitting bear's eyes. The profound cloud scarlet dragon was a demonic beast on the heavenly beast ranking, while the raging flame mountain splitting bear was only a demonic beast on the earth beast ranking. The difference between the two bloodline beasts was not small. Bang, bang, bang. As the two clashed, muffled sounds continuously rang out in the air, and countless runes erupted. However, this stalemate didn't last for long. The profound cloud scarlet flood dragon's gigantic tail whipped and descended like a bolt of lightning. The flood dragon's body was like a spinning top, its gigantic body exploding with dazzling green and red talisman inscriptions, coiling around the raging flame mountain, splitting bear comfortably. Chi! Du Xiaofu closed in, and a fist exploded with golden light, ruthlessly landing on the raging flame mountain, splitting bear's body. Roar! The raging flame mountain, splitting bear let out a blood-curdling shriek, and the ferocious glint in its huge eyes turned into fear and dread. Bang! Following which, the raging flame mountain splitting bear's huge body was directly smashed to the ground by Du Xiaofu's fist, and the impact caused the ground to crack. Du Xiaofu's figure landed on the ground, wrapped in golden light. His clear eyes flickered with golden light as he ruthlessly stomped on the raging flame mountain, splitting bear's body. Roar! That seemingly weak kick caused the raging flame mountain, splitting bear to let out a blood-curdling roar. This bear's paw will definitely be good for barbecue. Du Xiaofu revealed a smile. Golden light erupted from his hand, and directly enveloped the raging flame mountain, splitting bear's paw. The golden-winged rock suppressed it and fiercely pulled. Roar! The pitiful raging flame mountain splitting bear was a Nirvana realm demonic beast expert, and not many people in the entire dark forest dared to provoke it. However, at this moment, it was letting out a blood-curdling shriek as it spat out large mouthfuls of blood. A huge bear paw was forcefully torn off by Du Xiaofu, and it was dripping with blood. It was a tragic sight. Oh my God, he's too ferocious. This is even more demonic than demonic beasts. Everyone on the city tower was shocked and gasped. That purple-robed young man was so ferocious, tearing off the eagle's wings and pulling off the bear's paw. Those were all terrifying demonic beasts in the Nirvana realm. All demonic beasts, get lost. Otherwise, I'll barbecue all of you. Du Xiaofu's figure once again stepped into the sky, and his thunderous roar was deafening. Golden light erupted, and his aura was extremely domineering. A wave of pressure swept across the sky. Roar, roar. All the demonic beasts trembled violently. Under that terrifying aura, they couldn't resist at all. With the fear that came from their bloodline, they instantly flapped their wings and flew away. Under the sunset, they cast a large shadow and quickly rushed into the dense mountain range and forest, disappearing. The terrifying, ferocious birds in midair were so frightened by the pressure that they almost turned around and fell. At this moment, all of them were struggling to leave in fear. The iron-armored demonic vulture that had a broken wing flapped the other half of its wing and fled in panic. It didn't dare to stay and flee for its life. The raging flame mountain splitting bear that had a broken paw was also fleeing for its life. It didn't dare to stop at all, as it was afraid that the purple-robed young man would chase after it. Huff, huff. Looking at the square that was filled with dust at this moment, the earth was shaking and the mountains were shaking. The roars and cries were getting further and further away in panic. Everyone on the city wall gasped. Who would have thought that the thousands of terrifying demonic beasts were actually scared away by that purple-robed young man? The raging flame mountain splitting bear and the iron-armored demonic vulture even left behind their paws and wings. That young man is too powerful. Everyone was in disbelief, and their hearts were thumping. It's him. He's that ferocious Du Xiaofu, Tianwu Academy's Du Xiaofu. The Du Xiaofu who killed the Black Fiend sect's young master, Shui Yuming. I heard that Du Xiaofu has already been conferred the title of Marquis in the Stone Dragon Empire, and defeated the Tianhu Empire's martial king realm human king, Lu Kuan. Why is he here? On the city wall, someone finally recognized the purple-robed young man. When the three words Du Xiaofu spread out, the surrounding people's gazes changed drastically. Hurry up and open the city gate. On the city wall, Hua Fankong looked at the sky with trembling eyes as he spoke to the bald man beside him. Commander Hua, why? The bald man was puzzled. The talisman array on the city wall was a special existence. It wasn't set up by a talisman master on the spot. It was a fixed talisman array. Every time it was opened and closed, it would consume a lot of energy. Hua Fankong looked at the bald man and sternly said, "Because our World Society's president is here. Inform everyone that the president is here. All the World Society's disciples welcome him." Today's update is complete. Chapter 494. President. The bald man was stunned. He opened the city gates in a daze after being reprimanded by Hua Fankong. The city gate opened. Amidst the astonished gazes on the city tower, all the disciples of the World Society rushed out. Yi Piaoling and Hua Fankong were at the front. They walked towards the purple-robed youth outside the city. "Greetings, President." Hua Fankong bowed to Du Xiaofu respectfully when they stood before the purple-robed youth. All the members of the World Society were stunned. All along, the World Society only had the King of Medicine and the Eagle King Gongblade. Other than Hua Fankong and Yi Piaoling, no one knew who the president was. Even to the members of the World Society, the president was a huge mystery. There were often World Society disciples and outsiders who guessed that with the Medicine King and the Eagle King's Gongblade in charge of the World Society, the president must be a terrifying expert. Now that they saw the president was the purple-robed youth, it was absolutely shocking to the members of the World Society. They didn't expect the president to be so young. The bald man was the most shocked. When he saw that the purple-robed youth was the president, he remembered that he didn't open the city gates. He broke out in cold sweat and wanted to die. "Greetings, President." The members of the World Society bowed to Hua Fankong. After the initial shock, they followed suit. "Rise." Du Xiaofu nodded to Hua Fankong and the others. Then, His gaze landed on the black-robed youth. He raised his eyebrows and said, "Martial Lord Nirvana Realm, you broke through again? I have to thank the King of Medicine for this. However, don't compare yourself to me. I don't want to feel unbalanced." Yi Piaoling looked at Du Xiaofu. There was an innate, piercingly cold sharpness in his eyes. However, at this moment, his face was filled with gentleness. After which, he turned around slightly and looked at the stunned first princess Cheng Shengnan behind Du Xiaofu. After which, he smiled at Du Xiaoqing and Du Xiaoyao. There was some gentleness in his piercingly cold and sharp eyes. "You broke through quite quickly. Not bad." Du Xiaoyao acted like a senior like Zhen Qingchun. People couldn't help but laugh. "You look much better when you smile than when you don't. You should be like my brother and smile more." Du Xiaoqing patted Yi Piaoling's shoulder and spoke like a big sister. "Okay, I will smile more in the future." Yi Piaoling smiled. She had a high-nosed bridge, and her thin lips contained some arrogance. Her temperament was extraordinary. However, at this moment, she was filled with gentleness in front of Du Xiaoqing and Du Xiaoyao. It was likely that any girl would be confused by her. When the surrounding World Society disciples saw the young lady and the little golden macaque looking down on the killing god, Yi Piaoling, and the killing god, Yi Piaoling, and even smiled, they were shocked. "Let me introduce you. She is Cheng Shengnan." Du Xiaofu introduced the princess to Yi Piaoling. Then, he introduced Yi Piaoling to Cheng Shengnan. "She is my friend, Yi Piaoling." Cheng Shengnan smiled at Yi Piaoling. However, she secretly glanced at Yi Piaoling. Du Xiaofu's introduction was only 6 words. The words "my friend" gave her a special meaning. "Sister Shengnan is my future sister-in-law." Du Xiaoqing smiled at Yi Piaoling after Du Xiaofu introduced Cheng Shengnan. Yi Piaoling nodded slightly at Cheng Shengnan. However, she wasn't as casual as she was with Du Xiaoqing and Du Xiaoyao. Her temperament returned to its original coldness. She was like an eagle in the night, proud and aloof. "This is Hua Fankong, the leader of the World Society." Du Xiaofu then introduced Hua Fankong to Cheng Shengnan. "Let's go and see your World Society. Senior King of Medicine came back 2 days ago and said that you would come to Chaos Demon City in a few days." Yi Piaoling said to Du Xiaofu, "Let's go. Bring the bear paws and bird wings. We can barbecue them when we go back." Du Xiaofu nodded. He didn't forget to bring the giant bear paws and bird wings. "He is Du Xiaofu. I met him before. He is the Du Xiaofu who killed the young master of the Black Fiend sect, Shui Yunming. I didn't expect him to be the leader of the World Society. I really didn't expect this." The surrounding mountains were connected. There were continuous buildings in the middle. It was a big city all around. Other than Chaos Demon City, it was hard to find a place like this. Among the continuous buildings, there were ancient buildings. There were also many courtyards and pavilions that had been renovated recently. In the middle of the buildings was a huge ancient pagoda. The 3 golden words World Society stood on it, shining brightly. Night fell. Du Xiaofu saw the King of Medicine, Yi Wuming, Eagle King, Gong Dao, Hua Fankong, and Yi Piaoling in the side hall. Li Shui, who had just arrived recently, was also in the group. Du Xiaofu learned from her that the Dark Wolf had sent a letter to ask the King of Medicine, Yi Wuming, to help. After that, he immediately rushed back to the imperial capital. "How is your uncle?" King of Medicine, Yi Wuming, asked Du Xiaofu. "Thank you, Elder Yi. Uncle is fine now." Du Xiaofu bowed. He had to thank Elder Yi for his uncle's safety. "It's good that you are fine. Now that you are back, I don't have to worry anymore." King of Medicine, Yi Wuming, said to Du Xiaofu, "I believe that the silver-winged demonic condor and the rest will not be able to hold themselves back any longer. If they did not need my help, they would not have waited until now." The silver-winged demonic condor asked Elder Yi for help. Upon hearing this, Du Xiaofu's expression was rather doubtful. He had not heard Yao Wang mention this matter a few days ago when he was at the Du clan in Shi City. President, the silver-winged demonic condor, the tiger-subduing mastiff, and the pale flame-red leopard are all asking for help from the King of Medicine. They want the King of Medicine to refine pills for them to help them break through, especially the silver-winged demonic condor. It is already at the Nirvana realm of the Beast King realm. The Eagle King, Gong Dao, cupped his hands, and said to Du Xiaofu. He looked at Du Xiaofu with mixed feelings. Back then, he was forced to join the world society. Naturally, he was not willing to accept it. In this half a year, he had indeed gained a lot of benefits. The king of medicine had even personally refined pills for him. Although his cultivation had not reached the point where he could directly break through to the next level, it had increased by a lot. In the world society, his position was second only to the king of medicine. He was respected by the world society disciples. Therefore, in this half a year, he had integrated into the world society. The king of medicine smiled faintly and said to Du Xiaofu, "The silver-winged demonic condor and the others want me to refine some pills for them to increase their strength, especially the silver-winged demonic condor. If he can get a monarch beast pill, he'll have a 50% chance of breaking through to the beast emperor realm. But the monarch beast pill is a monarch beast pill. It's hard for me to refine it. Even if I could refine it, I wouldn't be able to refine it for them. If I increase their cultivation, we'll be in a passive position." Du Xiaofu's eyebrows twitched as if he was thinking of something. He then smiled faintly and said, "These beasts really know how to think. Let's put the silver-winged demonic condor's matter aside for now. Anyway, the silver-winged demonic condor and the others have scruples. They won't dare to touch the world society easily. Now that you are back, the world society has something more important than those beasts. I'm afraid you need to deal with it." The king of medicine looked at Du Xiaofu and frowned slightly. "Old medicine, what is more important than dealing with the silver-winged demonic condor and the others?" Du Xiaofu looked at the king of medicine, Yi Wuming's expression, and immediately became serious. Something more important than dealing with the silver-winged demonic condor would naturally be very troublesome. The king of medicine smiled bitterly and said to Du Xiaofu, "Actually, this has a lot to do with me. You can say that it started because of me, but this situation needs you to deal with it. Let the king of medicine tell you." The king of medicine nodded and said to Du Xiaofu, "During this period of time, the world society has been developing well in the Chaos Demon City. Because of the king of medicine, many people have come to join us. Back then, I had a discussion with the king of medicine. The world society has just started and is in the period of development. We have relaxed some conditions for people to join us. This has allowed the world society to gather many experts during this period of time. The outside world has always thought that the king of medicine, Yi Wuming, and I are overseeing the world society. In addition, there is also the god of slaughter, Yi Piaoling, as our general. But they don't know that there are actually many experts hidden in the world society." When the name god of slaughter was mentioned, Yi Piaoling's face helplessly flashed with a bitter smile. When Du Xiaofu heard that there were other experts hidden in the world society, he was surprised. The king of medicine, Yi Wuming, had not mentioned this at all in the Stone City. The king of medicine, Yi Wuming, seemed to see Du Xiaofu's surprise and said to Du Xiaofu, "Don't be surprised. When you were in the Stone City, you were worried about your uncle. I couldn't tell you about these troublesome things. However, although this is troublesome, it is still manageable. Plus, it started because of me, so I didn't mention it to you. I wanted to wait until you came to the Chaos Demon City to tell you." The king of medicine continued to say to Du Xiaofu, "Actually, in the world society, other than the king of medicine and me, there are many other martial lord realm cultivators. There is even another king realm cultivator. When Du Xiaofu heard this, his heart trembled. Chapter 495. It's a 6-star mystic tier talisman master called Mountain Man Wuzhen. He used to be on good terms with me, and he owed me a favor 30 years ago. Back then, I saved his life. When he heard that I was in Chaotic Demon City, he came looking for me." The Medicine King sighed softly, then said to Du Xiaofu, "Mountain Man Wuzhen can be considered a loose cultivator. He's all alone in the world, so he wanted to stay in the world society. I thought that with his status and strength, staying in the world society would be beneficial to the world society, so I let him stay. A 6-star mystic tier talisman master should naturally stay. It's a great thing for our world society." Du Xiaofu nodded his head. A 6-star mysterious talisman master was definitely an expert that any faction would flock to fight over. Joining any faction would allow him to receive the treatment of a VIP. If he wanted to stay in the world gathering, it would naturally be a great thing. Eagle King Gong Dao frowned slightly, then raised an eyebrow and said, President is right. A 6-star mystic tier talisman master is willing to stay. It's naturally a great thing. It's just that our world society has only been established in chaotic Demon City for a short period of time. Later on, we've subdued quite a number of small and medium-sized factions, and they've long surpassed our original world society. The leaders of those subdued factions have 2 reasons for submitting to the world society. One is that they're afraid of death, and the other is that they want to benefit from it. After a long time, they've all gathered together. Hearing Eagle King Gong Dao's words, Du Xiaofu frowned slightly. He immediately understood what Eagle King Gong Dao and Medicine King Yi Wuming were trying to say. The world society would rise, but they didn't have enough trump cards up their sleeves. Most of those factions who submitted to the world society were afraid of Eagle King Gong Dao on one hand, and wanted to benefit from Medicine King Yi Wuming on the other. There were probably only a few who truly submitted to the world society. After a long time, they naturally formed cliques and factions. Many of those who sought refuge and those who surrendered have formed 2 factions. A small number of them still listen to me and the Medicine King, but most of them have joined forces with Hermit Wuzhen. In the beginning, we didn't say much. After all, the World Assembly has just been established. We thought that since Hermit Wuzhen was an expert, he should know his limits since he had joined the World Assembly. Eagle King Gong Dao continued. However, we didn't expect that as Mountain Man Wuzhen's forces grew, there would be some changes. He began to interfere in the society's matters. Not only did he not stop dispatching people, but his group of people also gradually became more arrogant and domineering. Sometimes, they even disobeyed orders. Some of those who submitted to the world society gradually became malignant tumors in the world society. After the Medicine King spoke to Mountain Man Wuzhen a few times, Mountain Man Wuzhen appeared polite on the surface, but he didn't take them seriously. As Eagle King Gong Dao finished speaking, Du Xiaofu's brows knitted tightly. According to Eagle King Gong Dao's words, the world society's internal situation was indeed more dangerous than facing the silver-winged demonic condor. President, the internal situation of the world society is indeed more serious, especially Incense Master Ho Bumming and Incense Master Chao Yu. The 2 of them have formed cliques and are extremely arrogant. It's difficult for anyone to control them. Li Shui said to Du Xiaofu. Her beautiful eyes flickered and her clothes were still provocative. After coming to the world society for the past few days, she had a rough understanding of the world society's situation. Ho Bumming came here to seek refuge. He has the strength of a perfected martial marquis and was originally a ferocious person. Chao Yu was the sect master of the Green Mountain sect, the largest faction in the Chaos Demon City. He is also a perfected martial marquis. However, after consuming the Medicine King's goo poison pill, he is more well-behaved than Ho Bumming. However, due to Ho Bumming's influence, the 2 of them have been getting closer. Du Xiaofu sat upright with a solemn expression. The world society was developing very quickly. However, since he wasn't in the society, the Medicine King probably didn't have much authority even though he was focused on comprehending and refining puppets. As for Hermit Wuzhen, he was a talisman master and the Eagle King's Gong Saber couldn't control him. As time passed, the people below him all had complicated backgrounds and were all scheming. After someone fanned the flames, it naturally led to the current situation. As a talisman master, Hermit Wuzhen had an extraordinary status. With him as the leader, no one except the Medicine King would be able to suppress the world society. Below him, Hua Fangkong's strength wasn't strong enough to control the situation. Yi Piaoling's strength wasn't ordinary, and her killing intent was fierce. However, Ho Bumming and Chao Yu, who were both perfected martial marquis, had a ferocious reputation while the other was the master of a region. The 2 of them should be cunning and sinister people. Yi Piaoling probably couldn't control the situation alone. Looks like I have to face this as the president. A moment later, Du Xiaofu exhaled slightly from his abdomen. Looking at Hua Fangkong, he smiled faintly and said, Commander Hua, inform everyone who can make it to gather at the World Meeting's drill ground tomorrow morning, especially all the leaders. Whoever dares to not make it will be severely punished. Yes, I will inform them now. Hua Fangkong immediately nodded. His heart trembled slightly. He had been in the dark forest for so long and was even a leader back then. He wasn't a fool. Hearing the president's words, he knew that once the president returned, he would immediately reorganize the world society. He immediately left the side hall and prepared to inform all the leaders of the world society. Looking at Hua Fangkong's retreating figure, the medicine king Yi Wuming slightly narrowed his eyes. He smiled at Du Xiaofu and said, "I won't be going tomorrow. Just do what you need to do. However, you have to be careful. Some people are wavering. With a little intimidation, it shouldn't be a big problem for now." "Rest assured, Senior Medicine," Du Xiaofu nodded. A sharp light flashed in his deep and clear eyes. "Of course I'm not worried." Medicine King Yi Wuming smiled. With Du Xiaoqing, that girl, there was nothing for him to be worried about tomorrow. He was only thinking about the effect tomorrow. Anyway, those people definitely wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. All right, business is almost done. There are still bear paws and bird wings. Are you interested in roasting them? Du Xiaofu stretched and looked at Yi Piaoling. "I don't know if it will taste good. I can try it." Yi Piaoling smiled faintly. "It should taste good." Du Xiaofu smiled and then asked Li Shui, "Do you have wine?" "Yes, I will go get it now." Li Shui nodded slightly. However, she felt helpless in her heart. Facing the internal crisis of the world society, this guy had just returned and was still in the mood to eat and drink. It seemed that he really couldn't be treated as an ordinary person. A moment later, on a mountain peak, a bonfire flickered under the moonlight. A huge bear paw and bird wings were being roasted over a small fire on a grill made of rocks. The aroma of the meat filled the air. Du Xiaofu sprinkled the fragrant leaves and seasonings he found on the bear paws and bird wings. The bear paws and bird wings sizzled with oil, and the aroma of the meat assailed his nostrils. Just thinking about it made him drool. Smelling this meat fragrance that caused one's appetite to soar, Du Xiaoqing, Little Tiger, and Du Xiaoyao by the side had already accumulated power and were ready to attack at any time. Eldest Princess Changshengan also looked strangely at the serious Du Xiaofu. Without a doubt, she couldn't resist the aroma of the meat. Li Shui and Hua Fangkong, as well as the other two middle-aged men, also twitched their noses under the aroma of the meat and looked at it in surprise. One of the two men was called by Qi, a martial marquis at the profound level. The other was called Xia Wenxing, a martial marquis at the initial level. The two of them had a close relationship with Hua Fangkong and didn't mix with Mountain Man Wu Jin and the others. They were summoned by the Eagle King's gong blade. On the mountain peak, Du Xiaofu was focused on roasting the bear paw and bird wings. These were the paw and bird wings of a beast marquis at the Nirvana realm. The energy contained within was extraordinary. At this moment, the aroma of the meat filled the air, and there was a rich energy fluctuation. Anyone could tell that eating this barbecued meat was much more beneficial than eating some pills. Du Xiaofu was no stranger to this kind of roasted meat. In terms of roasting meat, Du Xiaofu had learned it from Fu Yibai. At this moment, while roasting the bear paw and bird wings, Du Xiaofu couldn't help but think of Fu Yibai. Du Xiaofu didn't know where Fu Yibai was. He was already so old, but he still had to leave the Du family. He could only pray that the old man was safe and sound. Sizzle. Just as the aroma of the meat reached its peak, the aroma of the beast marquis realm beast meat was something that no one could resist. At this moment, the sound of wind breaking could be heard. Two more people appeared on the mountain peak. One was the Medicine King Yi Wuming, and the other was the Eagle King's gong blade. The aroma is overflowing. The Eagle King's gong blade landed on the ground and immediately stood in front of Du Xiaofu's roasted meat. His saliva was overflowing. Gulp. The Medicine King Yi Wuming didn't say anything. He leaned forward and looked at the bear paw and bird wings in front of Du Xiaofu. Gulp. 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 You are the Eagle King's gong blade. Watch out for my sword. As the Eagle King's gong blade appeared, the first Princess Changshengan suddenly shouted. Suddenly, a terrifying rune exploded from her palm. Buzzing sounds of wind and thunder resounded. The light retracted and the mid-grade Dao artifact, Rock Dragon Wind and Thunder Sword, appeared in her hand. The blunt sword swept out with incomparable sharpness. Multicolored light shot up into the sky along with a murderous aura. Swish, swish. As the sword light swept out, an ancient and terrifying aura rushed out. A terrifying pressure descended out of nowhere, causing people to tremble. A vast energy fluctuation swept out like an ocean, as if it was tearing apart space. It instantly enveloped the Eagle King's gong blade. At this moment, no one expected such a change. Everyone's expression changed. Even Du Xiaofu didn't expect that the first Princess Cheng Shengnan would suddenly make a move on the Eagle King's gong blade. Not good, this is troublesome. However, Du Xiaofu seemed to have thought of something as his expression changed. Rock Dragon Wind and Thunder Sword, you are a member of the Cheng family. Chapter 496. Rock Dragon Wind Lightning Sword, you are from the Cheng family. Eagle King Gong Dao's expression changed drastically as he recognized Cheng Shengnan's background. His expression darkened as his ferocious aura filled the sky. In a short moment, his 5 fingers formed a claw as energy erupted like a flash flood. Swoosh! The claw print enveloped the night sky. Terrifying energy distorted the space, causing faint arc-shaped indentations to appear in the space before the claw print. With a low, muffled sound of spatial energy, it finally tore apart a large area of sword light. Vigorous rune energy force spread out in all directions like waves. Whoosh! The mighty energy spread across the sky as the runes shattered. Eagle King Gong Dao blocked the sword light. Ding ding! On the other hand, First Princess Cheng Shengnan retreated slightly. Even with the Rock Dragon Wind Lightning Sword, she could not do anything to Eagle King Gong Dao. Let's talk nicely. Du Xiaofu's figure suddenly appeared between the two of them. He looked at the two of them with a bitter smile on his face. There is no way to talk nicely. Eagle King Gong Dao deceived my aunt and left in the end, causing my aunt to wait bitterly for 15 years. She was hurt by love and had no medicine. In the end, she died of depression. Cheng Shengnan glared hatefully at Eagle King Gong Dao. Du Xiaofu's eyes moved as he was surprised to hear this. He had heard from Medicine King Yi Wuming that Eagle King Gong Dao was a fugitive from the Stone Dragon Empire. One of his eyes was injured by an expert from the Cheng family. He did not expect it to be because of love. Sigh. Eagle King Gong Dao sighed as he looked at Cheng Shengnan and said, 25 years have passed in the blink of an eye. I did not expect the girl from back then to have grown up so much. Speaking of which, I even hugged you when we were young. You know best what happened back then. If not for your Cheng family looking down on me for not being strong enough and wanting to marry your aunt into the Gu family, I would not have been forced to leave. When I returned, I was all ready. With a long sigh, Eagle King Gong Dao's single eye rippled as he sighed. Looks like there's quite a story behind this. Hearing about the Eagle King's gong blade, Du Xiaofu narrowed his eyes. There was definitely a lot of inside information and secrets. I can't beat you, and I can't do anything to you. As a member of the Cheng family, I've done my duty. As the Eagle King Gong Blade's voice faded, First Princess Cheng Shengnan put away the Rock Dragon Wind Lightning Sword. Immediately after, half a jade pendant appeared in her slender hand. She tossed it to the Eagle King Gong Blade. Her red lips parted slightly, and there was a complicated expression in her eyes. She said, "My aunt secretly gave this to me before she left. She asked me to return this jade pendant to you. She also asked me to tell you that I will not let you down in this life. In this life, I didn't let you down." Eagle King Gong Dao took the jade pendant from Cheng Shengnan's hand and held it in his palm as he softly chanted the words, "Phew." Seeing this, Du Xiaofu let out a sigh of relief. He then said to everyone, "Okay, everyone, let's eat the barbecue. Begin." Du Xiaoyao was the most impolite. She immediately pounced on the bear paw. The little tiger knew how delicious the barbecue was, so he didn't hold back either. Du Xiaoqing smelled the aroma of the meat and couldn't hold back. Naturally, she wouldn't be slower than Du Xiaoyao. "Let's do it." Du Xiaofu used his dagger to cut off a few pieces of meat. The aroma of the meat was overflowing, and the energy-fluctuating bear paw was wrapped in a large piece of vanilla. He handed it to First Princess Cheng Shengnan, Yi Piaoling, Li Shui, Hua Fankong, Bai Qi, and Xiaowenqing. Only then did he go to Medicine King Yi Wuming's side. "Oldie, try it." Du Xiaofu smiled and handed a piece of barbecue to Medicine King Yi Wuming. "It looks good." Medicine King Yi Wuming didn't hold back. However, when he ate, he still had to take into account his dignity. After tasting the first bite, Medicine King Yi Wuming's eyes lit up. He immediately forgot about his image and dignity. He wasn't much slower than Du Xiaoqing and Du Xiaoyao. At a corner of the mountain, Eagle King Gong Dao sat quietly on a rock. The moonlight shone brightly in the sky, revealing an indescribable silence. The Eagle King Gong Dao's palm held two halves of a jade pendant. When placed together, it was a complete round jade pendant. The sharp gaze of the single eye that made people's hearts palpitate was rippling at this moment. "There are some things that I am still young and don't understand, so I don't know what to say right now." Du Xiaofu's figure appeared in front of Eagle King and sat directly next to him. He held a large piece of barbecue meat in one hand and handed it to Eagle King Gong Dao with the other hand. He also had 2 gourds of wine. His gaze was fixed on the moon in the sky. "However, my cooking is not bad. If you miss it, it will definitely be a loss." Eagle King Gong Dao glanced at Du Xiaofu and immediately put away the jade pendant. He took the barbecue meat and wine from Du Xiaofu's hands and stuffed them into his mouth. He took a big bite and his eyes lit up. He opened the wine cork and drank a large mouthful of strong wine. He let out a long breath and said, "The wine is good. The meat is even more fragrant. If I miss it, it will indeed be a loss." Luckily, I didn't miss it. Du Xiaofu smiled faintly and didn't say anything. He quietly ate and drank with Eagle King Gong Dao while looking at the moon in the sky. Occasionally, he would touch the wine gourd. "You must become strong. In this world, strength is everything. Everything around you needs to be protected by strength." Eagle King Gong Dao suddenly said softly, as if he was talking to Du Xiaofu, but also as if he was talking to himself, "I will definitely become strong, a true strong person." Looking at the moon in the sky, Du Xiaofu seemed to be replying to Eagle King Gong Dao, but also seemed to be talking to himself. When Du Xiaofu and Eagle King Gong Dao finished their barbecued meat and got up to get more, they were depressed to find that the huge bear paws and bird wings had already been cleaned out by everyone. Du Xiaoyao, Du Xiaoqing, Little Tiger, and even Medicine King Yi Wuming had greasy mouths. Hua Fankong, Bai Qi, and Xia Wenxing reeked of alcohol. They were still chewing on the barbecued meat in their mouths. They definitely ate a lot. Li Shui and First Princess Chengshengnan were relatively better off. However, the current appearance of these 2 women with greasy mouths was probably beyond everyone's imagination. However, everyone had one thing in common. Their faces were glowing red. The energy contained in the flesh of a beast lord realm demonic beast was a great supplement. Although the bear paws and bird wings had been greatly affected by Du Xiaofu's barbecue, they still contained a shocking amount of energy. It was enough for everyone to obtain a lot of benefits. "Looks like we'll have to get more next time." Eagle King Gong Dao's face was filled with regret. He could only drink alone. Late at night, the bright moon hung high in the sky. In a small hall in the courtyard of the World Gathering, there was a pearl shining brightly. Many people were sitting inside. "Humph, that brat is really impressive. He actually said that if we don't show up tomorrow, we'll punish them severely. If it weren't for us, would the World Gathering have been able to unify Chaos Demon City? Would they have been able to compete with the 1 pavilion, 1 castle, and 2 sects? That brat really thinks that he's the president and wants to ride on our heads just because he has some talent. He probably has some relationship with Medicine King and Eagle King." In the small hall, a thin man in his 40s had an unhappy expression on his face. The aura around his body was slightly rippling, and it was extremely vigorous and sharp. This proved that this person's strength was definitely not weak. There was also a faint smell of blood in his aura, which proved that this person was definitely not a good person. Commander Ho is right. Although Du Xiaofu is somewhat extraordinary, rumor has it that he's already a marquis in the Stone Dragon Empire and has defeated the human king of the Tianhu Empire, Lu Kuan. However, if he wants to ride on our heads in Chaos Demon City, I'm afraid he doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. This is the Dark Forest. That brat Du Xiaofu is a marquis in the Stone Dragon Empire. Don't tell me we'll be considered people of the Stone Dragon Empire in the future? I didn't expect the president of the World Gathering to be a brat. If I had known, I wouldn't have joined in the first place. Am I supposed to work for a brat in the future? What a joke. As soon as the thin man finished speaking, everyone in the small hall echoed his words. Their emotions were extremely intense. In the small hall, an old man who looked to be in his 70s was sitting at the head of the table. He was tall and thin, and his body was thin and frail. He wore a long robe that gave off a feeling that he was wearing a cloak. The old man sat upright at the head of the table and watched the quarrel without saying anything. Commander Chao, you used to be the head of the Qingshan sect. Are you really willing to let a brat ride on your head? If it was the Medicine King, it would be fine. But what's with that brat? The thin man called Commander Ho looked at a burly man of about the same age as him and asked. This burly man's figure was much stronger than Commander Ho's. He wore a brown short robe. His short black hair was trimmed at the temples. The short robe revealed a pair of ferocious beast tattoos on his arms. His entire person exuded a ferocious aura. In the dark forest, this person was definitely an illustrious figure. He was the head of the Qingshan sect, the largest human faction in the Demon Chaos City. Chao Yu was a peak martial marquis. His violent and ferocious style was enough to make his opponents tremble in fear. Hearing this, Chao Yu's eyes moved. He seemed to be thinking about something. Then he said, I think we should go tomorrow. Even if it's to give the Medicine King face, we still have to go. We'll see when the time comes. Today's update has arrived. I also recommend Eternal Overlord. The modern assassin Luo Han died in an accident. His soul crossed over and was reborn in the Eternal Continent. Let's see how he breaks through the void, cracks the earth, and aspires to the peak of the firmament after obtaining the shocking inheritance in this foreign land. Readers who are out of books can go and see if it's to your liking. Chapter 497. Hermit, what do you think? We'll listen to you. Commander Ho turned to the side and looked up at the tall, thin, long-robed old man who looked to be in his 70s. Commander Chao is right. Even if we have to give face to the Medicine King, we still have to make a trip. Since the president is here, as a member of the World Society, how can we not see him? The long-robed old man said to the crowd, Everyone, leave first. We'll go see the president tomorrow morning. Commander Ho, Chao Yu, and the others raised their eyebrows when they heard the long-robed old man's words. However, they couldn't say anything else. They nodded and left. Early in the morning, everything was silent. The first rays of the morning sun shone on Chaos Demon City. The World Society's drill ground was bustling with noise early in the morning. There were no less than 10,000 people in the huge and vast square. Although the World Society hadn't risen for long in the past half a year, it had gained quite a number of members after subduing many small and medium-sized factions. In front of the crowd, the leaders of the World Society were all present. Hua Fankong, Li Shui, Bai Qi, Xiaowenqing and the others were all present. On the other side, the tall and skinny old man in long robes, Chao Yu and the others were present. However, strangely, they did not see Vice Chief Ho. In the crowd, Bai Qi's expression changed slightly. She glanced at the long-robed old man and the others and said softly, Ho Bumming's group doesn't seem to be here yet. His good days should be coming to an end. Hua Fankong smiled faintly. Whoosh whoosh, at this moment, there was the sound of wind breaking in the air. Then, several figures appeared in the air. Everyone looked up. In the lead was a purple-robed young man with a purple broadsword on his back. On his left and right were two beautiful women. On the left was an innocent young girl. There was also a pale golden macaque on his shoulder. Behind them was a small black cat. Lastly, the Eagle King, Gong Dao, and Yi Piaoling followed. The five of them landed in the center of the drill ground. Greetings, President. Hua Fankong, Bai Qi, Xiaowenqing, and the others bowed when they saw Du Xiaofu. Greetings, President. When the other World Society disciples saw this, their expressions changed slightly. After looking left and right, they saw that the people around them were all bowing, so they could only chime in. Only the tall and skinny old man, Chao Yu, and many others with extraordinary auras stood quietly. They sized up Du Xiaofu and the others without much respect. No need for formalities. Du Xiaofu's gaze swept across his surroundings as he faintly nodded his head. The World Society currently had quite a number of members, especially those at the Martial Marquis stage, with even more at the Pulse Spirit stage. This scale could not be underestimated. Du Xiaofu sighed in his heart. So many people had gathered in such a short period of time. Moreover, they were all from various factions and factions. It was no wonder that the world seemed to be on the rise on the surface, but in reality, there were many malignant tumors and endless hidden troubles. Du Xiaofu's gaze swept across the crowd and finally landed on a tall and thin-robed old man standing in front of the crowd. Yi Piaoling raised his head and looked straight at Hermit Wu Zhan. He said indifferently, "Hermit Wu Zhan, why aren't you bowing when you see the president?" "So this is the president. This old one is getting old and my bones are getting old. My old waist can no longer play. I seek the president's forgiveness." Hermit Wu Zhan did not reply to Yi Piaoling's words. Instead, his gaze landed on Du Xiaofu as he spoke softly with a smile on his old face. "Hermit Wu Zhan, you're being too serious. We're all members of the World Society, so there's naturally no need for you to be so polite." Du Xiaofu smiled indifferently. His expression was calm, and no one could tell what he was thinking. His gaze did not linger on Hermit Wu Zhan for long. Instead, he looked at the World Society disciples around the drill ground and said with a faint smile, "I reckon that everyone is still unfamiliar with me. Therefore, let me introduce myself. I'm from Tianwu Academy, and my name is Du Xiaofu. I'm currently the president of the World Society." As expected of Tianwu Academy's Du Xiaofu, he's the champion of the Tianwu tournament and the #1 on the martial ranking. Du Xiaofu. Rumor has it that he's the courage god king of the Stone Dragon Empire. As Du Xiaofu's words fell, the hearts of the World Society disciples trembled. Although they had heard that the president of the World Society was Tianwu Academy's Du Xiaofu, the courage god king of the Stone Dragon Empire, and Du Xiaofu's deeds had spread throughout the Chaos Demon City overnight, they were still shocked when they heard Du Xiaofu's words. However, Hermit Wu Zhan's old face was secretly pale. He originally wanted to take advantage of his seniority, but he could sense that Du Xiaofu didn't care about him at all. He was a 6-star mystical talisman master and a talisman master. He was one of the top experts in the entire Dark Forest. If he joined any empire or faction, he would be treated with the greatest respect. Even in the entire Middle Continent, he could be considered an expert with his cultivation, strength, and status. However, Du Xiaofu didn't seem to care about him at all. This puzzled him and made him feel uneasy. Hermit Wu Zhan thought that there were only 2 reasons why Du Xiaofu didn't care about him. The first reason was that Du Xiaofu only had talent and strength, but he was arrogant and unruly. It was difficult for him to achieve anything great. Such a person would fall sooner or later. The second reason was that Du Xiaofu didn't care about a 6-star mystical talisman master like him at all. However, even Hermit Wu Zhan did not believe in the second hypothesis. He was a 6-star talisman master and an array talisman master at that. If he were to leave, wouldn't the World Society beg him to stay? Haha, I'm sorry. I was meditating last night and was delayed this morning. Please forgive me. I almost missed the meeting with you. At this moment, a laughter was heard from outside the drill grounds. Soon after, a middle-aged burly man led 20 figures as they slowly walked over from outside the drill grounds. Upon hearing these words, the gazes from all around the drill ground turned to look, each of their expressions changing. It's Commander Ho and his group. They are clearly trying to embarrass the president. I'm afraid there will be a good show to watch later. Some people in the crowd discussed. The World Society disciples were naturally aware of the actions of Commander Ho and his group in the World Society. Du Xiaofu's gaze also fell on the group of people. They walked over slowly, neither too fast nor too slow. It was as if they were doing this on purpose. This is Ho Bumming. Eagle King Gong Dao's voice transmission landed in Du Xiaofu's ears. The leader, Ho Bumming, looked to be in his 40s. His aura rippled slightly. It was extremely vigorous and sharp. There was also a faint smell of blood in his aura. This proved that he wasn't just an expert, he wasn't someone to be trifled with. After a while, Ho Bumming leisurely walked to Du Xiaofu's side. He cupped his hands and said with a smile, I didn't expect the president to be so young and promising. I heard that you are the brave god king of the Stone Dragon Empire. I wonder if you can lead our World Society disciples to the Stone Dragon Empire to be conferred the title of Marquis and King in the future? As Ho Bumming's voice fell, the 20-plus people behind him revealed malicious smiles. However, the entire square around the drill ground fell into silence. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Anyone could hear the insinuation in Ho Bumming's words. In the dark forest, everyone was hostile to the surrounding empires. Now that Ho Bumming deliberately mentioned Du Xiaofu's identity in the Stone Dragon Empire, his meaning was self-evident. Du Xiaofu's gaze fell on Ho Bumming, then he swept his gaze across the group of people one by one. All the gazes in the surroundings were focused on him. At this moment, all of them wanted to know how this young president who had appeared out of nowhere would react. However, the numerous World Society disciples present only saw that after a short moment, Du Xiaofu instead revealed a faint smile towards Ho Bumming. He said lightly, Incense Lord Ho has been adjusting his breathing for the entire night. It's normal for him to forget the time. Du Xiaofu's voice was as calm as ever. No one could hear any emotion from it. As Du Xiaofu's words fell, Ho Bumming's eyes twitched without leaving a trace. Ho Bumming was definitely experienced and knowledgeable. At this moment, when he looked at the calm and resolute face, he felt that this seemingly young president was not as easy to deal with as he had imagined. The situation that he had originally prepared to face did not develop in the direction that he had predicted. Ho Bumming could only lead his group toward Hermit Wuzhen. When he looked at Hermit Wuzhen, he realized that Hermit Wuzhen didn't have any reaction. It was as though he didn't see him. Ho Bumming could only stand behind Hermit Wuzhen silently. I've called everyone here today because I want to meet everyone. Secondly, as a student of Tianwu Academy and the brave God King of the Stone Dragon Empire, I'm afraid that I'm not suitable to be the president of the World Society. Therefore, I want to choose a new president from everyone. Du Xiaofu looked around the drill ground. His voice spread out along with his profound energy, allowing everyone to hear him clearly. Boom. What's going on? Choosing a new president? You're not joking, right? When Du Xiaofu finished speaking, the entire drill ground was in an uproar. Hermit Wuzhen, Ho Bumming, Chao Yu, and the others were completely stunned. At this moment, even Yi Piaoling, Bai Qi, Eagle King, Gong Dao, and Li Shui were looking at Du Xiaofu in confusion. Eldest Princess Cheng Shengnan had been standing with Du Xiaoqing all this while. She wasn't a member of the World Society and naturally couldn't say anything. However, when she heard Du Xiaofu's words, her beautiful eyes were filled with doubt. Chapter 498. President, you can't. Hua Fangkong's expression changed drastically. He immediately stepped forward and said to Du Xiaofu, I've already decided on this matter. Du Xiaofu said to Hua Fangkong and the others. At the same time, he looked around the drill ground and said to all the World Society disciples, Now, everyone can choose a new president. Does anyone have a suitable candidate in mind? The surroundings were silent. Everyone looked at each other, their gazes filled with confusion. Commander Ho is strong and has been in the World Society for quite some time. He is the most suitable candidate. I recommend Commander Ho. Commander Chao is experienced and has been in chaotic Yao City for a long time. Commander Chao is the most suitable candidate. I recommend Commander Chao. In the crowd behind Ho Bumming and Chao Yu, after a short period of silence, someone finally spoke up. Then, someone loudly agreed. The voices of agreement were mostly in support of Ho Bumming and Chao Yu. There were even a few voices in support of Yi Piaoling. Hermit Wuzhen's face alternated between pale and pale. He actually couldn't hear any voices in support of him. This caused him to be filled with resentment. In the World Society, Hermit Wuzhen was a hidden expert. Only a few of the leaders knew of his existence. Ordinary disciples didn't know of his existence. Moreover, although Hermit Wuzhen's position in the World Society was high, he didn't have any real power or title. When he joined the World Society, with his cultivation and status, he naturally couldn't be a commander like Hua Fangkong, Chao Yu, Ho Bumming, and the others. The Medicine King and Eagle King Gong Dao didn't know what to do with Hermit Wuzhen either. Therefore, they only let him control the general direction of the world society. As for his status, it would have to wait for the president to decide. Back then, Hermit Wuzhen didn't care. With his cultivation and status, he naturally didn't have to worry about his status in the world society. Therefore, even now, Hermit Wuzhen didn't have any real status in the world society. In fact, not many people knew of his identity and existence. Therefore, although Hermit Wuzhen was a hidden king-level expert in the world society, he couldn't compare to Chao Yu and Ho Buming's influence in the world society. As more and more people voiced their support, the crowd chimed in. Instantly, more and more people supported Chao Yu and Ho Buming to become the guild leaders. These were the forces that the two of them had nurtured. However, around the drill ground, half of the world society's disciples were looking at each other with puzzled expressions and complicated gazes. Du Xiaofu's gaze swept across the crowd, a faint smile still on his face. I think it's better for a respectable hillman to be the president. Ho Buming raised his head and recommended Mountain Man Wuzhen. However, a strange light flashed across his eyes. I also recommend the hermit. He is a man of virtue and prestige. He will definitely be able to bring the World Association to greater heights. Chao Yu did not miss the opportunity to recommend Hermit Wuzhen. How could he not know what Ho Buming was thinking? How could he really hope for Hermit Wuzhen to become the president? It was just a polite remark. Besides, if they were to choose a president, they would not choose someone old. This was not a selection of elders. The two of you are too kind. The most important thing for a new president is to have enough strength to lead the World Association to greater heights. I am already old. Only then did a faint smile appear on Hermit Wuzhen's pale face. Although his words were polite, the meaning behind them was that he was retreating in order to advance. He purposely mentioned strength and was undoubtedly reminding everyone that he was the strongest. To become the president, one naturally needed absolute strength. Old fox. Ho Buming and Chao Yu couldn't help cursing in their hearts when they heard Hermit Wuzhen's words. Du Xiaofu slowly took 2 steps forward. However, he only glanced at Hermit Wuzhen from the corner of his eyes before his gaze landed on Ho Buming and Chao Yu. He said, "This old man is right. The most important thing for a new president is to have enough strength to lead the World Association to greater heights. It seems like the 2 most recommended candidates are Commander Ho and Commander Chao. This is making things difficult for me." At this moment, Hermit Wuzhen's face suddenly darkened. Du Xiaofu had directly called him old man. There was no doubt that he did not place him in his eyes. Du Xiaofu stopped and looked at Ho Buming and Chao Yu. He said, "How about this? Between Commander Ho and Commander Chao, whoever is stronger will become the new president. How about it?" Ho Buming and Chao Yu looked at each other at Du Xiaofu's words. They looked at Du Xiaofu with a smile, but for some reason, they felt a chill in their hearts. It was extremely uncomfortable. "President, I'm afraid that this is a little difficult to compare." Ho Buming hesitated as he looked at Du Xiaofu. Although he was also puzzled by Du Xiaofu's actions, he could not help but think that he had been unhindered his entire life. How could he be played by a brat who was still wet behind the ears? That's true. The 2 of you are both at the great circle of martial marquee cultivation. If you really want to compare, it will not be easy unless you fight to the death. If that happens, it will inevitably affect the harmony between the 2 of you. Du Xiaofu's expression became troubled when he heard this. After pacing around in thought for a while, he suddenly raised his head and looked at Ho Buming. He said, "Commander Ho, Commander Chao, how about this? The 2 of you will each exchange 3 moves with me. This old man will determine who is stronger and who is weaker. The stronger one will become the new president. How about this?" After Du Xiaofu finished speaking, he looked at Mountain Man Wuzhen and asked, "Elder, can you be the judge for us?" "Humph." Mountain Man Wuzhen let out a deep snort. He could not say anything after being called an old man by Du Xiaofu time and time again. He glanced at Ho Buming and Chao Yu before nodding at Du Xiaofu. However, there was not much joy on his face as he said, "It is naturally not a problem to be a referee. Commanders, what do the 2 of you think?" Du Xiaofu smiled in satisfaction when he saw Hermit Wuzhen nod. He continued to ask Ho Buming and Chao Yu. Ho Buming and Chao Yu looked at each other. They felt uneasy, but they could not figure out what was wrong. They both nodded in agreement. Seeing this, Du Xiaofu smiled faintly. As the smile appeared on his face, all the surrounding World Society disciples could feel a domineering aura sweeping out from Du Xiaofu's body, causing the surrounding space to tremble with a loud bang. Chi. At the same time, Du Xiaofu's purple robe fluttered. He stomped on the ground and soared into the sky. A vast aura surged as he floated in the air. He looked at Ho Bumming and Chao Yu and asked with a faint smile, "Commanders, who will make the first move?" Ho Bumming's expression changed as he looked at Du Xiaofu in the air. While Chao Yu was still hesitating, Ho Bumming's aura surged as he leaped into the air and said, "In that case, let me exchange 3 moves with the association head first." Ho Bumming did not underestimate his opponent. He had his own plans and confidence. Although it was said that Du Xiaofu had defeated Lu Kuan, a martial king, in the Stone Dragon Empire, it was only a rumor. The nobles in the Stone Dragon Empire were probably exaggerating it to show off the might of the Stone Dragon Empire. Judging from Du Xiaofu's aura, Ho Bumming did not believe that this brat could contend against him at such a young age. If Chao Yu defeated this brat first and became the president of the World Society, Ho Bumming's gains would not make up for his losses. Du Xiaofu looked at Ho Bumming and smiled. "That's fine. I heard that Commander Ho's strength is extraordinary. However, don't hold back just because I'm the president of the World Society. You must show me your full strength." "Don't worry, President. I will do my best." As Ho Bumming's voice faded, everyone around the drill ground could feel that the atmosphere in the surrounding space had suddenly solidified. In the air, the two of them faced each other. Their auras fluctuated slowly as they looked at each other. However, everyone below could see that although President Du Xiaofu was young, he had left behind many legends in many places. As for Incense Master Ho Bumming, he also had a fierce reputation and had been famous for a long time. These two people were not easy to deal with. "Commander Ho, you only have 3 moves." Du Xiaofu stood in the air. His purple robe fluttered under the strong wind formed by faint golden xian qi. His clear eyes stared at Ho Bumming. He raised his head slightly, and his aura gradually became overbearing. "Make your move. If you want to become the new president, you must have absolute strength." The expression in Ho Bumming's eyes suddenly changed the moment Du Xiaofu's words sounded. He had finally found an opportunity. He took a step forward, and a sharp cold glint shot out. In this short moment, the profound qi in his body erupted without any reservation. A sharp ripple spread across the sky with a bang. "Then I won't be polite." As soon as he shouted, Ho Bumming's figure turned into an afterimage. His figure moved like lightning, and the afterimage was like a ray of light. Like a cheetah pouncing on its prey, he carried a terrifying aura and appeared in front of Du Xiaofu in an instant. Commander Ho is so fast. Many people in the drill ground sighed. They stared at the sky and didn't dare to blink. In a short moment, Ho Bumming's figure appeared. He waved his hand and threw a punch directly at Du Xiaofu. Boom! Mysterious runes wrapped around his fist, and profound energy surged. The air suddenly trembled, and waves of terrifying, profound energy erupted. The fierce, terrifying force was like a storm, and the ripples of energy spread out in a ring shape to the horizon. This vast force pressed down on the sky and made many people in the drill ground tremble in fear.